Chapter 138. Garamandes returned to the dining table in the private room. He looked at Xueji, who was a little worried, and said, "It's settled. He won't bother Xuejing again. Let's continue eating." Nian Bing gave Garamandes a thumbs up. Yen Yun dared to steal a woman from the Fire Dragon King. He must be tired of living. Luckily, Garamandes couldn't kill people. Otherwise, he would have become a corpse. Strength was the foundation of speech. No matter when and where it was, this was an unchanging truth throughout the ages. The next morning, Nian Bing said goodbye to everyone and left Ice City quietly. Garamandes was here, so he didn't have to worry. Now, he had to work hard for his and Long Ling's future. The two green-level warriors from the Blood Lion cult followed him. They were still far behind Nian Bing, waiting for his orders. Traveling alone, Nian Bing wasn't in a hurry. He didn't fly. Instead, he walked and stopped, fully immersing himself in his magic cultivation. The reason why he wasn't in a hurry was because he knew that the Blood Lion cult needed time to dispatch people. Dispatching experts from various empires to Ice Moon City wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. He arrived at Ice Moon City first to find Yen Feng and communicate with him. The weather in the Ice Moon Empire was obviously colder than other empires. The further north he went, the stronger the feeling became. When he passed by the Peach Blossom Forest, Nian Bing didn't go back. He was afraid that he would remember everything that happened between him and Cha Ji. He only felt grateful to this teacher who taught him how to cook. He had already decided that he would go back to the Peach Blossom Forest to pay tribute to Cha Ji after he became the champion of the God of Cookery tournament. The road was wide, and the trees on both sides were mostly coniferous plants. The gradually cold air didn't affect Nian Bing. As he walked, he stopped breathing. His walking speed was always maintained at a strange rhythm. He discovered that through the combination of Xiantian Qi and his own magic power, this kind of walking was also a kind of cultivation method. Although the speed of gathering magic power was not as fast as sitting cross-legged in meditation, it was still very fast. But it wasn't too far off. Right now, Nian Bing's greatest desire was to increase his magical power. As he walked, he waited. He was waiting for someone to arrive. 2 days later, Nian Bing, who was walking slowly, suddenly stopped. In 2 days, he had only walked 100 miles. There was still a long way to go before he reached Ice City. "Miss Bingyun, you're really patient. But what's the use of following me like this? Are you waiting for your Ice God Tower's reinforcements?" Nian Bing said calmly. A white figure floated down, and the surrounding air became even colder. It was none other than the Thousand Illusion Ice Cloud. Nian's insults to her. That could only be washed. Nian's humiliation. So, Nian Bing. The humiliation. Her humiliation. Nian's humiliated her. Her tsbs. Beasts. She followed her out. "Nian Bing, if you have the ability, follow me back to the Ice God Tower. Don't you want to know where your parents are?" Bing Yun. After a few days of thinking, she had regained her usual calmness. Nian Bing looked at Bing Yun, who was wearing a veil. He subconsciously thought of the beautiful face hidden behind the veil. He smiled and said, "I must go to the Ice God Tower. But not now. If Miss Bing Yun is interested, you can follow me. I'm going to Ice City now. Once I'm done there, I'll go to the Ice God Tower." Bing Yun was stunned. She didn't expect Nian Bing to make such a request. She sneered and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll attack you at any time?" Nian Bing smiled. "I'm afraid. I'm afraid of my life. However, to have such a beautiful Miss Bing Yun by my side is indeed an exciting journey. You and I both understand that the current you is no longer my opponent. Since you want to keep an eye on me, then follow me on the journey. Don't worry, before we reach Ice City, I won't do anything to you. I think that your Ice God Tower's influence in Ice City should be very strong. When the time comes, you can bring experts to capture me. I'll be waiting for you." How about it, Miss Bingyun, are you interested in going with me? Bingyun looked coldly at Nianbing. She couldn't figure out what Nianbing was thinking. However, she was arrogant by nature. Since the opponent had made a request, how could she be afraid? Okay, I'll go with you to Ice City. Nianbing said happily. Okay, since Miss Bingyun is so straightforward, then I'll also promise you. As long as the matter in Ice City is settled, I'll go with you to the Ice God Tower to see the world. Looking up at the sky, Nianbing smiled and said, It's getting late. Let's rest for a while. These few days, Miss Bingyun has been nervously following me. I don't think it's good for your magic practice. As he spoke, he didn't ask for Bingyun's opinion. He walked to a big tree by the roadside and pretended to lie down. He lifted the golden cloak on his head, revealing a head of white hair. Before leaving Ice City, Li Hua had rushed to make 10 golden magic robes and gave them to Nianbing. He no longer wore coarse clothes. Although these golden magic robes weren't of much help in casting magic, they were still eye-catching when walking on the road. Bingyun walked to a distance of 30 feet away from Nianbing and sat down. Before sitting down, she had already used magic to condense a piece of ice on the ground. Her gaze fell on Nianbing's white hair, and her eyes revealed a trace of curiosity. Although she grew up in the Ice God Tower and cultivated a cold nature, she was still a girl who wasn't even 20 years old. How could she not be curious? Nianbing didn't seem to notice Bingyun's gaze and rubbed his stomach. I'm really hungry. Let's get something to eat first. As he spoke, he turned and walked into the forest. Frozen Cloud also stood up and followed him into the forest not far behind. As they walked forward, they almost simultaneously saw a thick smoke rising from the forest. A faint smell of smoke came. There was also a clear fishy smell. Nianbing's heart skipped a beat. A trace of a smile appeared on his face, and he strode in the direction of the thick smoke. From afar, Nianbing could already see a person grumbling as he sat there. Annoying, really annoying. Why does the food I roast taste so bad? If only Brother Nianbing was here. The taste of his roast meat is much better than mine. Then, look at what you've summoned with your urine. The meat is so bad. It's so hard. How can I eat it? A fiery red fox sat at the side and looked at its master with innocent eyes. Seeing them, Nianbing couldn't help but reveal a knowing smile. He quickened his pace and walked over. The fox's reaction was very fast. It immediately looked at Nianbing with vigilance. At the same time, it took a few steps back and hid beside its master. Only the fox's head was revealed. Looking at its wretched appearance, Nianbing couldn't help but laugh. Following Miss Kitty's summons, Nianbing is here. Wind magic. In a flash, he had already arrived beside the fox's master. The person roasting alone was clearly Hillard's daughter, Kitty. Kitty raised her head and looked at Nianbing in disbelief. She stood up and tiptoed to pinch Nianbing's face. Wow, I'm not dreaming, right? When did my summoning skills improve to this level? I can actually summon Brother Nianbing. Nianbing rubbed Kitty's head lovingly. Yes, Brother Nianbing knows that you want to eat roasted meat, so you summoned him here to serve our cute kitty. Bingyun had also walked over. Seeing the beautiful and cute kitty, she couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise. The light in her eyes also became much gentler. Kitty looked at Bingyun curiously. Brother Nianbing, who is this big sister? Nianbing smiled. She's my friend. We were resting on the side of the road when we happened to see smoke coming from your side. I also smelled the scent of your fox, so I guessed it was you. The fox seemed to have grown a lot compared to before, especially its long fiery red fur. Not only had it grown longer, but it also faintly emitted a faint golden color. Kitty pulled Nianbing's big hand and said excitedly, That's great, Brother Nianbing. Kitty hasn't eaten anything good these days. You must roast meat for me. Nianbing smiled and said, You didn't sneak out to play again, did you? How's Uncle Hillard? Kitty stuck out her little tongue and said, Daddy is very good. However, He seems to have gone out to look for Uncle Caradiris. It seems that something happened to Uncle Caradiris. I just snuck out to play for a few days. After a few days I'll go back by myself. Brother Nianbing, you're not allowed to scold me. Nianbing looked at her and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You little girl. I knew you snuck out again. Uncle Hillard is so worried about you. Kitty pursed her lips and said, Daddy always forces me to practice magic at home. I'm so pitiful. I'm locked up every day. Now that I finally have a chance, of course I'll run out to play. Brother Nianbing, I'm so hungry. Can you make something delicious for me first? Then Kitty will follow you. When we find a big city, we'll rent a carriage and go home. I can't find my way now. Nianbing really didn't know what to do with her. He said helplessly, Okay. Let me see what you caught. As he said that, he looked at the meat that Kitty had thrown on the ground. It was no longer ordinary meat, but a black lump. The fire next to it had been extinguished, and the ground was covered with white fur. It seemed that Kitty had spent a lot of effort to eat this. You greedy little kitten, your culinary skills are too lousy. From the looks of its feathers, you should have caught a snow pheasant unique to the Ice Moon Empire. Snow chicken is fresh and tender, and tastes much better than ordinary chicken. It's also a good choice for roasting. How did you end up roasting it like this? Kitty giggled and said, I was afraid that I wouldn't get a stomachache if I didn't roast it properly, so I roasted it for a while. Who knew it would turn out like this? Brother Nianbing, does that mean this snow chicken should be delicious? Nianbing nodded and said, Is the power of your fox's urine still there? If it's still useful, we'll wait for a while and catch another snow chicken for you to eat. Kitty clapped her hands excitedly and said, Okay. That had already evolved to the second stage. Its urine could last for a very long time. However, this Ice Moon Empire was really very poor. There were very few wild beasts. In such a dense forest, I only managed to catch a snow pheasant after half a day. Brother Nianbing, then let's wait for a while. I want to eat your roasted meat the most. The deer you roasted last time was so delicious, but I didn't get to eat it because of little Stutterer. This time, I'll have a good meal. Looking at Kitty's longing eyes, Nianbing said, It's not winter yet. There should be a lot of animals in such a dense forest. How can it be so barren? As he said that, he slowly closed his eyes and stopped breathing. With the help of the Tian Yen acupoint, he felt the aura around him through the innate qi. The innate qi was extremely sensitive to any kind of energy. Ever since he had the innate qi, Nianbing no longer had to worry about his body not being able to withstand the impact of magic power. With the help of the innate qi, his magic power was changing slightly, especially the ability to automatically absorb the magic elements in the air, which was very useful to him. The one who liked Nianbing's innate qi the most was Oscar. Oscar was just born not long ago, and although he evolved under the cooperation of the 7 Dragon Kings, the innate qi was still very nourishing to him. Under the nourishment of Nianbing's innate qi, his cultivation speed was very fast, and that gray aura became more and more solid. The Kanate qi was connected to the heavens and earth, so he could fully sense the natural Kanate qi. Suddenly, Nianbing was shocked, because he discovered to his surprise that the Kanate qi in this land wasn't as strong as he had imagined. There were so many plants here, so logically speaking, the Kanate qi should be abundant. However, upon closer inspection, the Kanate qi wasn't very strong. Although it didn't affect the growth of the plants, it was very strange. Just as Nianbing was thinking about what was going on, suddenly, an extremely strong airflow came from the ground and approached them. Shocked, Nianbing remembered that the fox used his magical urine to summon a golden-backed dragon king. His heart couldn't help but tighten, and he didn't dare to be negligent. He hugged Kitty beside him and shouted, Be careful, let's go. Under the effect of wind magic, they rose to the sky in the blink of an eye. The fox's reaction was very fast, and as soon as Nianbing hugged Kitty, it had already jumped onto Kitty's shoulder. When Qianhuan Bingyun heard Nian Bing's shout, she immediately tore open the blizzard scroll that she carried with her the most, and rose to the sky almost at the same time as Nian Bing. At this time, she and Nian Bing looked down at the ground. "What the hell are you doing?" Bing Yun looked at the still calm ground, puzzled. She didn't feel any change. Nian Bing stared at the ground and said in a deep voice, "I don't know what is underground, but this thing can absorb innate qi. There are so few animals in this forest, I'm afraid it has something to do with it." As soon as his voice fell, there was a loud bang, and a tall cedar tree was blown up into the sky. A huge head drilled out of the ground, shaking its head and letting out a deafening roar. The gigantic head appeared to be round and had a diameter of 5 feet. It looked like the head of a gigantic rat, and its entire body was covered in short, grayish-black fur. It was especially clear in the forest, and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth that were 3 feet long. A layer of black aura continued to spread into the surroundings, and wherever it passed, the trees would wither. A pair of dark red eyes stared at Nian Bing and the other two in the air. Kitty exclaimed, "Good, good! This is the dark demon rat. Looking at it, it has probably evolved to level 5. It's so big, how scary!" Nian Bing was stunned. How could he be more familiar with these special magical beasts than Kitty, who had been practicing summoning since she was young? He couldn't help but ask, "What is this dark demon? Why is it so big?" "Your fox is really powerful. He has leveled up, and the monsters he attracts have also leveled up." Nian Bing secretly decided that he wouldn't use the fox to attract food in the wild in the future. At this time, with the constant shaking of the ground, the dark demon rat was constantly emerging from the ground. Every time its huge body shook, it would bring up a clump of soil, and the black aura on its body became stronger. Its huge body was like a small mountain, and it was not smaller than the Dragon King's real body at all. Kitty said, "The dark demon rat is a very rare dark magical beast. They usually live underground, and they hunt all kinds of small animals and absorb spiritual qi to strengthen themselves. The biggest characteristic of the dark demon rat is its ability to evolve. Generally speaking, ordinary magical beasts can only grow and become fixed after they grow up, but a magical beast like the dark demon rat can evolve continuously. As long as it absorbs enough energy, it can evolve again and again. A few of my little pets, for example, are of this type. Oh right, my big mouse Tian is also a dark demon rat, but it's only level 2 now. It's not as powerful as the one below. Back then, Dad spent a lot of effort to bring Tian back to me. I think he caught it in the Ice Moon Empire. Could it be this big mouse's child? The dark demon rat can only give birth once in its life. It's very pitiful. Brother Nian Bing, let's go. Don't hurt it, okay?" Nian Bing looked at Kitty with a smile and said, "What's wrong? Don't you want to eat barbecue? But I have a question. Since the dark demon rat is a dark magical beast, why don't I feel the dark aura of your mouse? It seems that it only has the ability to charge and rely on the hardness of its body." Nian Bing was very interested in the powerful magical beast below. He believed that after opening the Tian Yen acupoint, his spiritual power was no worse than that of a white man. If he could learn the white man's summoning skills, and get a few powerful magical beasts by his side, what a wonderful thing it would be. Kitty naturally didn't know what Nian Bing was thinking. She explained, "The dark element of the dark demon rat will gradually appear after it evolves to level 3, so Tian can't do it now. Brother, I want to eat barbecue, but I don't want to eat magical beasts. This dark demon rat is obviously above level 5. We may not be able to defeat it. Even if we can, its meat won't be delicious. Nian Bing, brother, this level of dark demon rat is even stronger than my golden North Dragon King, which hasn't fully matured yet. Be careful, it's attacking us." Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. He didn't even need to look. He could clearly feel the air flow rising from below. He moved horizontally toward Nian Bing like lightning and activated the Tian Yen field. The dark aura weakened by itself, and at the same time, it translated the light aura. The 7 shadow puppets were scattered in the air, each holding a divine sword, waiting for Nian Bing's order to attack. The dark demon rat's attack was very simple. It opened its mouth and spat out a black air flow, which swept toward the 3 people in the air. It was so big and had no wings, so it obviously couldn't fly. Its dark red eyes kept flashing with a fierce light. Just when Nian Bing was thinking about whether he should listen to Kitty and leave immediately or kill the dark demon rat, something strange happened. The shadow puppet floating in the air didn't receive Nian Bing's order, but it moved. A black light flashed, and it directly entered the dark air flow that the dark demon rat spat out. The demon-devouring blade shone brightly, and a huge dark aura surrounded the energy that the dark demon rat spat out. It was quickly devouring it, and the energy that the dark demon rat spat out became stronger. The black gem on the demon-devouring blade shone brightly, and the entire shadow puppet seemed to become solid, slowly pressing down on the ground. The dark demon rat's huge red eyes were filled with fear. It stepped back step by step, but it couldn't stop spitting out energy. It could only let the shadow puppet continue to devour it. The shadow puppet's eyes lit up, and its blood-red eyes shone with a cold light. It raised the demon-devouring blade high, and pointed the handle at the dark demon rat. A black light net floated down, and the net kept expanding in the air, covering the dark demon rat's body. The dark demon rat struggled violently in fear, but no matter how hard it struggled, it couldn't escape from the dark net. Nian Bing was startled. He hurried to control his shadow puppet with his spiritual power, but he found that the shadow puppet was no longer under his control. All of its actions were autonomous. Cold sweat trickled down Nian Bing's back as a strange thought suddenly surfaced in his mind. Could it be that this shadow puppet of his had intelligence? That was impossible. It was clearly formed by his own energy. Kitty shouted, "Brother, what are you doing? What is that shadow doing? Stop it! Stop it!" However, it was too late to say anything now. As soon as the black web ended, the dark demon rat let out a sorrowful cry, and its body shrunk. The dark demon puppet pointed its demon-devouring blade at the dark demon rat, and the dark demon rat spun on the spot. Its huge body was sucked into the air, and the closer it got to the dark demon puppet, the smaller its body became. In the end it turned into a dark aura that revolved around the dark demon rat's body. Its red eyes dimmed again. Nian Bing used his spiritual power to communicate with the dark demon puppet again, and regained control over it. A strange feeling came into Nian Bing's spiritual power. He clearly felt that the dark demon rat was inside the gem on the handle of the demon-devouring blade. The shadow puppet's energy had increased tremendously, and it had surpassed all of the other puppets. "Brother Nian Bing, what did you do? What a pitiful rat! Did you kill it?" Kitty looked at the black figure in the air nervously. Nian Bing smiled bitterly. "I don't know. These puppets were formed by my energy. Logically speaking, it should have been completely under my control, but at that moment I lost control of it. Everything was done by it on its own. However, the dark demon rat shouldn't be dead. It seems to be sealed in my demon-devouring blade like your summoning technique." Ever since he had obtained the demon-devouring blade, Nian Bing had carefully studied it. However, he hadn't been able to find anything useful. He couldn't help but feel a little lost now that the shadow puppet with the demon-devouring blade as its core had suddenly undergone such a change. The 3 of them landed on the ground again. Nian Bing withdrew the other 6 puppets. Only the shadow puppet, which was almost solid because of its energy, was left. Feeling the powerful aura released by it, Nian Bing felt a little uneasy. Now that it was no longer under his control, if he let it absorb the energy of other dark creatures, would it completely break free from his control? No. That shouldn't be the case. The demon-devouring blade had already recognized him and condensed with his blood. He and the blade had already formed a soul connection, so it couldn't betray him. But how could he explain what just happened? Nian Bing couldn't figure it out. Qianhuan Bingyun looked at him with a different gaze. Nian Bing's mysterious energy made her feel discouraged. She had always thought that she was one of the best among the younger generation of mages. She was extremely indignant when she lost to Nian Bing in the arena back then. However, the truth was right in front of her now. Nian Bing was much stronger than her, especially that strange innate domain. It seemed to be even more powerful than her own snow goddess domain. It even had the ability to restrain her domain. Nian Bing controlled the shadow puppet to make a few moves, and the shadow puppet immediately followed his will. There seemed to be nothing wrong with it. His spiritual power merged with the demon-devouring blade. Nian Bing's eyes flashed, and he said softly, "Release." Black air flowed out from the handle of the demon-devouring blade, and the previous huge figure suddenly appeared not far in front of Nian Bing and the shadow puppet. The shadow puppet didn't lose control, and the released dark demon rat was very docile. It lay on the ground motionlessly, blinking its huge eyes at Nian Bing, as if waiting for orders. Nian Bing's heart moved, and he said to the dark demon rat through his spiritual power, "Go and catch a few snow chickens." He wanted to see if he could control the huge rat that was taken back by the shadow puppet. It turned out that his experiment was a success. After receiving Nian Bing's order, the dark demon rat stood up without hesitation, turned around and crawled into the big hole it came out from. Its huge body disappeared with a series of friction sounds. The shadow puppet continued to stand there calmly, as if everything had nothing to do with it. Nian Bing's mind kept going through various thoughts, but he just couldn't figure out what state the shadow puppet was in right now. If it had its own intelligence, then why was he able to control it with his spiritual power? And he couldn't find any trace of intelligence. The demon-devouring blade was still the same as usual. Whether it was the jewels on the handle or the blade, there weren't many changes except that it was full of dark aura. Demon-devouring blade, "Oh demon-devouring blade, what secrets do you have?" Although Nian Bing still couldn't figure out what had happened, he faintly felt that the changes in the shadow puppet formed by the demon-devouring blade must have something to do with the dead Emperor Kurobutsu. Kitty looked at Nian Bing in surprise and said, "Brother Nian Bing, why did the big rat come back? Why did it run away?" Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "If I'm not wrong, this dark demon rat is probably under my control. My 7 blades are very strange, and each of them has a special origin. I don't know why it's like this. Maybe it's because the dark demon rat belongs to the dark attribute. Or maybe it's because my demon-devouring blade is too spiritual, and it sensed the aura of the dark demon rat, so it took it back." After a while, the huge body of the dark demon rat drilled out of the ground with 3 still-alive snow chickens in its mouth. It brought them to Nian Bing and lay on the ground meekly again. Nian Bing suddenly thought that the dark demon rat was so good at burrowing underground. If he made good use of this advantage. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile evilly. His spiritual power passed into the demon-devouring blade and took the dark demon rat back. At the same time, he took back the shadow puppet. Although he still had some doubts about the demon-devouring blade, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel happy when he thought of the role of the dark demon rat. Without Kitty's urging, he had already taken action. The 3 snow chickens were quickly cleaned under the effect of ice magic. He found a few branches, removed the leaves and bark on them, and put the 3 snow chickens on a rack. Bing went to the side of a tree and sat down. He didn't even look at Nian Bing, and closed his eyes to meditate. Kitty's spiritual power was all on the 3 snow chickens, and Fox was drooling and crying. Nian Bing smiled and put the 3 snow chickens on the rack. The progress of magic made it easier for him to control the fire. He brushed the seasoning evenly on the snow chickens and began to roast them. After a while, a strong aroma filled the air, and the skin of the snow chickens gradually turned brown. The meat of the snow chickens was tender and plump, and roasting them was one of the best cooking methods. As the strong aroma continued to spread, Kitty was anxiously jumping on the side, waiting for the snow chickens to be done. While roasting the snow chickens, Nian Bing stole a glance at Bing Yun, who was not far away. Bing Yun still sat there calmly and meditated, as if she didn't smell the aroma. Nian Bing had to admit that Bing Yun was definitely one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen. Only Feng Nu could be compared with her, but she was the disciple of his enemy. The snow pheasants were finally done. Nian Bing handed one of them to Kitty, who couldn't wait any longer. Kitty received the snow pheasant and immediately ran over to Frozen Cloud in high spirit. Sister, sister, the pheasants are done. You should eat some too. Then she handed the snow chicken to Bing Yun. Bing Yun opened her eyes and looked at the innocent Kitty. She showed a rare smile, took off the veil on her face and said softly, "Little sister, you can eat by yourself. I won't eat his food." She didn't know why, but when she looked at Kitty, the coldness in her body disappeared automatically, and she couldn't keep a straight face. Chapter 139. Kitty looked at Bing Yun in surprise and said, "Sister, Nian Bing's cooking is very delicious. Try it. Don't call me little sister. I'm already 16 years old. Just call me Kitty. That's what everyone calls me." As she said this, she handed the snow chicken to Bing Yun again. Bing Yun froze for a moment. Looking at Kitty's innocent face, she really couldn't bear to refuse. Besides, the smell of the snow chicken really didn't smell good. She immediately reached out to take the branch, tore off a chicken leg from it, and returned the branch to Kitty. "You eat it. This is enough for sister." Kitty giggled, then began to eat to her heart's content. Relying on the craftsmanship of ice and fire 9-layered heavens, the snow pheasant brought out the best taste in Nian Bing's hands. Let alone Kitty, even Frozen Cloud, who had always been pure of heart and few desires, couldn't help but be moved after a few bites. The taste of the snow pheasant was a mixture of different flames. Every bite gave one a completely different feeling. Although the ice goddess priestess doted on her very much, the dishes of the ice god tower had always been mainly vegetables. Moreover, the cooking methods were very ordinary. Suddenly tasting something delicious, she couldn't help but carefully savor it. Compared to Kitty, who was wolfing down her food, she was much more refined. She ate small mouthfuls, and every movement was so beautiful, without a trace of grease on her face. Nian Bing ate the snow chicken by herself while looking at Kitty and Bing Yun. A faint cold light flashed in her eyes. The 3 snow chickens were quickly finished. Nian Bing ate one herself, and Kitty ate more than one. Bing Yun, who had only planned to eat 1 chicken leg, also ate a lot under Kitty's enthusiasm. After tasting Nian Bing's craftsmanship, Bing Yun really couldn't understand why an excellent magician would put so much effort into cooking. To be able to make such delicious food, it was definitely not something that could be done in a day or two. Of course, she wouldn't ask Nian Bing about it. The pitiful fox could only pick up some chicken bones from the ground and eat them. It looked at its master with dissatisfaction. Unfortunately, Kitty did not seem to notice its pitiful appearance. "Kitty, we've finished our meal. Let's go. When we reach Ice Moon City, don't be naughty anymore. I'll find someone to send you home," Nian Bing said as she washed Kitty's face with water made from ice. Although she liked Kitty very much, however, he still had many important things to do in Ice Moon City. He was afraid that Kitty would be in danger if she followed him. Kitty washed off the grease on her face and said with some grievance, "Brother Nian Bing, do you hate Kitty? Kitty can protect herself. She won't be a burden to you. Let me follow you. It wasn't easy for me to make this trip out. Once Dad gets angry, I'll definitely catch her. He'll definitely arrest me again." Her eyes turned red as she spoke, and she looked at Nian Bing with a pitiful expression. Nian Bing shook her head helplessly and said, "Kitty, listen to me. Brother still has some things to deal with in Ice Moon City. It's not convenient for you to follow me. If something happens to you, how can I explain it to Uncle Hillard?" As soon as he said that, Bing Yun stood up and pulled Kitty's hand. "You don't have to worry about this. As long as I'm in Ice Moon City, no one can hurt her. Kitty, let's ignore this overcautious guy. Let's go. As she said that, she pulled Kitty's little hand and walked out. Nian Bing looked at Bing Yun with some surprise. She didn't seem to be as cold as she thought. She hurriedly quickened her pace and followed the two girls out of the forest. Along the way, Nian Bing and Bing Yun, who had an awkward atmosphere, got along peacefully with Kitty's mediation. Nian Bing became the two girls' personal chef. In the beginning, Bing Yun didn't want to eat the food he made. Later, she seemed to have gotten used to Nian Bing's delicious food. She didn't even need to be persuaded by Kitty. Her appetite was actually not smaller than Kitty's. There were a few times when Nian Bing made less food, and she didn't even have to eat it herself. In a seemingly harmonious atmosphere, 5 days later, they finally arrived at the capital of the Ice Moon Empire, Ice Moon City, which was only 100 miles away from the Ice God Tower. Ice Moon City was not much more prosperous than Ice Moon City. However, because it was the capital of the Ice Moon Empire, the entire city was filled with a strong political atmosphere. Patrolling soldiers could often be seen on the streets, and there were very few hawkers on the street. The first impression that this city gave people was naturally its good security. A handsome magician wearing a golden magician's robe, a cold woman with a veil covering her face, and a charming young girl attracted the attention of the civilians as soon as they entered Ice Moon City. However, Nian Bing and the other two didn't encounter any trouble. The reason was very simple. It was because of the ice flower symbol on Bing Yun's magician's robe. In the Ice Moon Empire, everyone knew that offending the royal family might not be a death sentence, but offending the Ice God Tower would definitely lead to a fate worse than death. As they walked, Bing Yun suddenly stopped pulling Kitty. She turned around and asked Nian Bing, "Where are you going?" Her voice was still very cold, although the hatred in her eyes had faded a little. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Let's find a place to stay first. Miss Bing Yun can also go find your Ice God Tower's helpers. You can rest assured that I won't run away. Besides, Kitty is here, isn't she?" As he spoke, he walked towards a large hotel by the roadside. A cold light flashed in Bing Yun's eyes. She pulled Kitty and followed Nian Bing into the hotel. With the identity of the Ice God Tower, the three of them stayed in the hotel for free. Nian Bing asked for 2 rooms, one for himself, and one for Bing Yun and Kitty. He had just entered the room to rest for a while when Kitty ran over. "Nian Bing Gij, Bing Yun Gij said that she wants to take me to the city to play. Are you coming? Come with us." Bing Yun Gij said that there are many delicious snack shops in the city. There are also all kinds of fur clothes that are specialties of the Ice Moon Empire. The weather is cold. My sister said that she would buy me some clothes to wear. Ice Moon City was north of Ice Snow City. It was now late autumn, so it was indeed a little cold. Looking at Kitty's happy appearance, Nian Bing shook his head and said, "You go with your sister Bing Yun. Gij is tired, so I won't go with you." What a joke. If he went shopping with a girl, he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Besides, he still had some important things to do. Kitty looked at Nian Bing with some dissatisfaction. "Gij is such a killjoy. Then you wait here for us to come back. I will buy you some clothes to wear too." After saying that, she skipped out. Looking at her back, Nian Bing was really envious of the carefree Kitty. If only he could be as happy as her. But at least it was impossible for now. Under the observation of his spiritual power, he clearly felt that Bing Yun and Kitty had left the hotel and were heading north. Although he was filled with hatred for the people of the Ice God Tower, he hoped that they would be together for a long time. Along the way, Frozen Cloud had been extremely good to Kitty. He believed that Frozen Cloud wouldn't harm Kitty. Moreover, Kitty had a bunch of summoned beasts and spiritual magic. She definitely wasn't as harmless as she appeared. Opening the window, Nian Bing lightly clapped his hands 3 times. 2 gray shadows floated in from the window and knelt down on one knee. "Sect leader, what are your orders?" Nian Bing said indifferently, "Take me to the entrance of the Ice Moon Hall. I want to." The people who should come should have already arrived. It had been 10 days since the order was issued. If they traveled day and night, at least some of the Blood Lion experts should have already gathered in Ice Snow City. The 2 green-level experts took Nian Bing out of the hotel. They were obviously very familiar with the roads of Ice Moon City. They took Nian Bing through the streets and alleys and soon arrived in front of a tall building. Arriving at this building, Nian Bing could not help but be stunned, because the symbol on the building was a sword. This represented the Warrior Union, and the Warrior Union of Ice Moon City was obviously the headquarters of the Warrior Union of the entire Ice Moon Empire. The Blood Lion Sect's Ice Moon Hall was actually here? With some doubts, he followed the 2 green-level experts and walked into the Warrior Union. There were many people in the Warrior Union, and many of them were here to level up their martial arts. The Warrior Union Hall was thousands of square meters, and hundreds of warriors did not seem very crowded. As soon as Nian Bing, who was wearing a golden magic robe, entered the Warrior Union, he immediately attracted the attention of the warriors. His magician's half-price was too conspicuous. One of the 2 green-level warriors stayed by Nian Bing's side, and the other quickly walked inside the Warrior Union. Nian Bing stood in the center of the Warrior Union and observed the surrounding environment. At least 2/3 of the warriors in the Warrior Union Hall were looking at him. Whispers could be heard all around. Where did this kid come from? He looks like a magician. What did he come to our Warrior Union for? Is he here to challenge us? He's too bold. Who knows where he came from, but I haven't seen a magician wearing a golden magic robe. He's really arrogant. Just looking at him makes me angry. Come, let's go test him. There were many people who wanted to test Nian Bing's strength. Nian Bing was still observing the surrounding environment when dozens of warriors surrounded him. These warriors obviously did not have good intentions. One of the tall warriors strode towards Nian Bing's direction, but he did not seem to see Nian Bing, and his strong body directly collided with Nian Bing. Nian Bing did not move, and it seemed that he did not see the opponent either. At this moment, a gray shadow flashed, and the green-level warrior who stayed by Nian Bing's side took the initiative to collide with the tall warrior. With a muffled bang, the 2 completely disproportionate bodies collided, but the result was unexpected. The green-level warrior acted as if nothing had happened, still standing by Nian Bing's side, while the tall warrior was knocked flying. He did not fall to the ground until several other warriors caught him. The actions of the green-ranked warriors immediately attracted the attention of the others. Loud shouts rang out, and the warriors quickly surrounded Nian Bing and Luo Yunyang. However, they did not use any weapons. Nian Bing coldly snorted, and stopped the green-level warrior beside him. In the next moment, 7 faint shadows appeared in the hall of the Warriors' Union. Every warrior clearly felt a chill on their body, and when they subconsciously looked at their own bodies, they were shocked to find that no matter if they were wearing armor or not, there were neat cuts on their chests, and the cuts formed the word white hair. Strength proved everything, and the warriors who were originally provoking Nian Bing stopped. But those who were not stupid knew very well that if Nian Bing wanted to take their lives, even if there were 10 of them, they would have disappeared. Nian Bing was still standing there, and the green-level warriors who saw Nian Bing for the first time could not help but have a burst of light in their eyes. No one saw how Nian Bing made his move. Although most of the warriors in the Warriors' Hall were below the great swordsman level, no one dared to underestimate this golden-robed magician with such strength, who could make so many warriors fall into his attack without any resistance in an instant. Another green-level warrior came back, nodded to him, and led him to the back of the Warriors' Union. The surrounding warriors automatically made way for Nian Bing, and watched him leave. After passing through a large door, and walking through a wide passageway, the green warrior brought Nian Bing to a large hall. The hall was luxuriously decorated, and a middle-aged man in his 40s was sitting on a big chair. When he saw Nian Bing coming in under the guidance of the green-level warrior, he stood up and greeted, "Your subordinate Yin Zue, the leader of the Ice Moon Hall, greets the leader." Lude? There was someone with such a name? Nian Bing felt a little funny. Is this the entrance of the Ice Moon Hall? Great hermits live in the city, this place is very good. Yin Zui smiled and said, Thank you for your praise, leader. He didn't have the cold aura of the blood of the leader of the Ice Snow Flag, but the smile on his face was even more frightening in Nian Bing's eyes. Leader Yin, since you know my identity, you must have received my order. How many of our people are here now? Nian Bing said calmly. Yin Zui hesitated for a moment, then said, Leader, the experts of our hall have all been gathered, but the people of the other halls haven't arrived yet. Nian Bing raised his eyebrows. Oh? The two halls of the Qi Lu Empire and the Huarong Empire are far away, but why haven't the people of the Aolan Hall and the Lang Mu Hall arrived yet? Is this the efficiency of our Blood Lion cult? Yin Zui stood up straight, and said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, Leader, because the 7 elders of the Blood Lion Hall haven't arrived, the other halls of our cult have some doubts about your order, so they haven't moved yet. Nian Bing sneered, Good. It seems that I haven't been recognized as the leader yet. He couldn't help but feel a little impatient. There were only 3 months left until the appointment with Long Ji, and the main force of the Blood Lion cult still hadn't arrived yet. Once the Blood Lion Hall confirmed his identity and dispatched more people, the time would be even more tight. However, he couldn't blame the other 4 halls for being cautious. After all, the Blood Lion cult was so powerful, and if the leader was an impostor, and he gave the order to mobilize all the fighting forces of the cult, it was indeed worth considering. There was no other way now, and he could only hope that the 7 elders would come sooner. Thinking of this, Nian Bing said, Leader Yin, since the 7 elders haven't arrived yet, we have to do some groundwork first. Where is the information about the princes of the Ice Moon Empire that I ordered? Yin Zui's eyes flashed, and he said, I'm sorry, leader, but before you get the recognition of the 7 elders, I can't carry out your order. Maybe you don't know, but although the previous leader has the right to nominate the next leader, to become the real leader of our cult, you have to pass the assessment of the 7 elders of the Blood Lion Hall. Therefore, from a certain point of view, you are not the real leader yet. Everything will have to wait for the arrival of the 7 elders before we can make a decision. Although he spoke politely, the arrogance in his bones told Nian Bing, Boy, you don't need me now. Nian Bing raised his head and looked at Yin Zui, who met his gaze calmly. Suddenly, Yin Zui felt a huge shock coming from Nian Bing's eyes, and he couldn't help but take a step back. He forced himself not to look at Nian Bing anymore, and a feeling of horror rose in his heart. He was actually 56 years old this year, but because of his powerful strength, he looked like he was in his 40s. He was one of the few people with the most promising prospects in the Blood Lion cult, and had already been selected as the next elder of the cult. When he first saw Nian Bing, he did look down on him. Nian Bing's arrogant golden magic robe was the complete opposite of his preferred introverted personality. In addition, Nian Bing looked too young, so he didn't think that Nian Bing could become the new leader of the Blood Lion cult. However, this one look caused a huge change in his mentality. Nian Bing's spiritual energy pierced through him like a solid substance, and even he, a swordsman, did not dare to look at him directly. Yin Zui was a little terrified. At this moment, Nian Bing's voice rang in his ears. It seems like I can't do anything now? Yin Zui's heart trembled, and he lowered his head. Leader, you can rest in the Ice Moon Hall for the time being. Wait for the arrival of the 7 elders of the Blood Lion cult. I think they will be here in a few days. He suddenly felt that it was very difficult to say these words. Nian Bing's body was constantly emitting a strong pressure, which made it difficult for him to breathe. It was not only from the spiritual pressure, but also from the physical pressure at the same time. Nian Bing nodded and said, All right, then I won't disturb Hall Master Yin any longer. With that, he turned and walked out. Things did not go as smoothly as he had expected. Although the potential of the Blood Lion cult was strong, it was not easy for him to completely control it. They did not do anything wrong. After all, how could such a strong force be controlled so easily? After Nian Bing left, Inzue's heart was uneasy. At this moment, his subordinates reported to him everything that had happened outside. White-haired, who are you? Out of the Warriors' Union. Nian Bing hesitated for a moment. Should he still rely on the power of the Blood Lion cult? The answer was yes. Before he had the power of the Blood Lion cult, he had to do something first. Although they said that they could not treat him as the leader for the time being, the two green-level warriors still followed him. Nian Bing called a green-level warrior and said, "Take me to where Blood Devourer and Soul Destroyer live. I think you should know where he lives." The green-ranked warrior nodded and led the way. Nian Bing turned around to look at the Warriors' Union behind him. He thought to himself, "When I come back again, I will definitely take control of the entire Blood Lion sect." As he walked, Nian Bing recalled the information he had inquired before leaving Ice Snow City. Blood Devourer and Soul Destroyer Xuepo, one of the three marshals of the Ice Moon Empire, was in charge of the most powerful knight regiment in the Ice Moon Empire. He was known for his cold-blooded killing style and was extremely powerful. In the Ice Moon Empire, he was definitely a person with real power. At the same time, he was also Xueji's brother and Xuejing's uncle. So far, this was all the information Nian Bing knew. In Ice Moon City, other than the Blood Lion cult, the only person he could have some relations with was this Marshal Xuepo. Of course, he did not expect Xuepo to participate in the plan, but as long as he had some support, it was enough. At least, he could help him make the most crucial move. As one of the three marshals of the Ice Moon Empire, Xuepo's mansion was very large. The two green-level warriors brought him to the mansion. Nian Bing let them leave first and walked towards the gate of the mansion alone. Who dares to trespass into the marshal's mansion? The 4 guards at the gate stopped Nian Bing. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Big brothers, I came from Ice Snow City's Qingfeng and want to see the marshal." The guards looked at Nian Bing and said, "Wait a moment." Then, one of them went into the mansion to report. After a while, the guards came out with a person who looked like a housekeeper. The housekeeper looked at Nian Bing in confusion and said, "You are from Qingfeng? I don't think I have seen you before." Nian Bing's golden magic robe made him a little suspicious. Nian Bing took out a letter and handed it to the housekeeper and said, "Please pass this letter to the marshal. I think he will see me." This letter was the recommendation letter he asked Xueji to write before leaving Ice Snow City. Since he knew what he was going to do in Ice Moon City, Nian Bing made some preparations. The housekeeper took the letter back to the marshal's mansion. Nian Bing was not in a hurry. He stood at the gate of the marshal's mansion and looked at the street. At this time, a carriage arrived at the gate of the marshal's mansion. The carriage looked very luxurious. The servant who followed the carriage lifted the curtain and 2 people came down from the carriage. 2 women came down from the carriage. The one who came down first was younger and looked to be in her 20s. She had bright eyes and white teeth and looked very beautiful. The one who came down later was a middle-aged woman. She was dressed gorgeously but did not lose her elegance. She walked towards the door with the servants surrounding her. Nian Bing quickly stood to the side and made way for the gate. When the 2 women saw him, they could not help but be stunned for a moment. The young girl looked at Nian Bing's handsome face with some surprise and asked the guard beside her, "Who is he? Why is he standing in front of our mansion?" The guard quickly answered, "Miss, he said he came from Ice Snow City's Qingfeng and asked to see the marshal. The housekeeper has already brought the letter he brought in for the marshal to see." The young girl was obviously very interested in Nian Bing. "Oh? You came from Qingfeng? So, you must know my cousin?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "If you are referring to Xuejing, then I do know her. You must be Marshal Xue's daughter." Yes. My name is Xueyu. I haven't been to Ice Snow City for a long time. I really want to eat Uncle Ming's golden incense rings." Looking at Xueyu's appearance, Nian Bing secretly said in his heart. Another greedy girl. The middle-aged woman smiled and said, Since you came from Qing Fengzhai, you are not an outsider. You can go in with us. I think the master will see you. Nian Bing followed the beautiful woman and Shui Yu and finally entered the marshal's mansion. After a few steps, he met the housekeeper. Madame Shui asked, and sure enough, Shuepe asked the housekeeper to invite Nian Bing. Shui Yu originally wanted to ask Nian Bing about Qing Fengzhai, but she was pulled away by Madame Shui. Nian Bing followed the housekeeper through 3 courtyards, and then came to the study of Shuepe. After the housekeeper reported, he took Nian Bing into the study. As soon as he entered the study, Nian Bing saw Shuepe sitting behind the desk. Snow Soul was tall, and he was sitting there reading a book. His appearance was at least 70% similar to Xueji's. What surprised Nian Bing was that Martial Snow Soul, who was known to devour knowledge and destroy souls, was actually emitting a strong scholarly aura. He looked more like a well-educated scholar. Where was the iron blood style? Of course, Nian Bing was not an ordinary person with shallow knowledge. Appearance was not enough to judge a person. He hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. Nian Bing greets Marshal Shui. Shuepe put down the book in his hand. He picked up the letter that Nian Bing sent to the housekeeper. You were sent by Xueji, right? Xueji said in the letter that you are his friend. Why are you looking for me? Shuepo's voice was clear. It was not as deep as Xueji's, and it sounded very comfortable. Nian Bing and Shuepo's eyes met. He saw coldness in Shuepo's eyes. Nian Bing said, I came to Ice Moon City this time to see a friend. I also need Marshal Shui's help. My friend is the Ice Moon Empire's 7th prince, His Highness Yan Feng. Shuepo looked at Nian Bing in surprise. His gaze was a bit strange. You want to see Yan Feng? He just returned to Ice Moon City not long ago. Although I am an important official, I can't see the princes casually. Now that the Ice Moon Empire's king was seriously ill, it was the time when the princes were fighting fiercely. He, who had always been neutral, had rejected the prince's requests. How could he meet the princes casually now? Nian Bing thought of Yan Feng's special hobby, and could not help but smile bitterly. With Yan Feng's hobby, it would be hard for Marshal Shui not to misunderstand. Yan Feng, oh Yan Feng, just let me be the scapegoat. Then, he said calmly, Marshal, you don't have to be troubled. You just need to tell me where Yan Feng is. I have my ways to see him. With his current strength, the palace's defense was nothing. Shuepe frowned and said, Thank you for delivering the letter on behalf of my brother. However, I can't help you with this. If there's nothing else, you can leave. Nian Bing smiled when he saw Shuepo's unapproachable expression. He said calmly, Marshal Shui, you must be afraid of getting into trouble if you're not willing to help me. In fact, I just want to meet my friend. It's not difficult for Marshal Shui to tell me where Yan Feng is, Dad. Shuepe snorted, what a joke. I Shuepe have never known what fear is. However, you're just a little magician. Why should I help you? Originally, Xueji asked him to take care of Nian Bing in the letter. However, when he thought that Nian Bing was friends with the 7th prince who had a special hobby, Shuepe felt an indescribable disdain. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, If that's the case, then I'm sorry for being rude. Marshal Shui, the Ice Moon Empire is in a delicate situation. As an important official of the Empire, shouldn't you think about the future of the Ice Moon Empire? Shuepe frowned. What do you mean? Nian Bing smiled and said, Nothing much. I just feel that as one of the 3 marshals of the Ice Moon Empire, Marshal Shui doesn't support any of the princes of the Ice Moon Empire. Although you have a high position and power, and no matter which prince inherits the throne, they will put you in an important position, don't you think more about the empire? Currently, the princes who have the most hope of inheriting the throne are the 1st prince, 2nd prince, and 5th prince. If the 3 of them fight, it will cause political turmoil. It will be detrimental to the development of the Ice Moon Empire. Shuepe snorted, What do you know? The Ottoman Empire and the Longmu Empire have both recovered from their battle with the Hwarong Empire. Only these two empires share a border with our empire. Even if our empire's political situation is unstable, as long as I, Shwepo, am here, they won't be able to do anything to us. The Ottoman Empire has always been on good terms with our empire. The Longmu Empire has just lost and has lost a lot of strength. Would they dare to do anything to our empire? Kid, who are you? You're just a commoner. It's not good for you to care about politics. For Shweji's sake, I won't make things difficult for you. But if you continue to spout nonsense, don't blame me for being rude. Nian Bing smiled. I misspoke. Please forgive me, Marshal. Then, I have a request. I won't make things difficult for you. I want to stay in the Marshal's residence and be a chef. Is that okay? Shwepa was stunned. What did you say? You want to be a chef? Judging from your attire, you should be a magician, right? Nian Bing smiled. Who said that magicians can't be chefs? As he spoke, he took off his golden magician's robe, revealing his commoner attire. His long white hair draped over his shoulders. He looked a little strange. Seeing Nian Bing's white hair and commoner attire, Shwepa frowned. What are you trying to do? Nian Bing looked at Shwepa with a surprised expression. Marshal, didn't Uncle Shweji tell you that I'm a chef in his letter? Uncle Shweji has already decided that I will represent Qing Feng Zhai in the God of Cookery tournament in 5 months. I think my cooking skills will definitely satisfy you. When I entered the Marshal's residence, I met Miss Shweyu. She seemed to like Qing Feng Zhai's golden fragrance ring. What a coincidence, I know how to make this dish. When I first came to Ice Moon City, I've already spent all my traveling expenses. I don't need too much reward. I just want a place to stay. Shwepa asked doubtfully, You're really a chef? This is the first time I've heard of a chef who knows magic. Alright, I'll give you a chance. It's almost noon. If you can make a meal that satisfies me, I'll keep you as a chef in the residence. Servant. Yes, Marshal. A servant walked in and bowed to Shwepa. Chapter 140. Shwepa pointed at Nian Bing and said, Bring him to the kitchen. He will make my lunch today. No one else is allowed to help him, understand? Yes, Marshal. The servant Nian Bing nodded and turned to leave the study. Nian Bing bowed to Shwepa and followed him out. Looking at Nian Bing's departing figure, Shwepa muttered to himself, Shweji, Shweji, who is this person that you are recommending to me? It seems that I really need to ask him clearly. Thinking of this, he summoned another servant and hurriedly wrote a letter, ordering the servant to send it to Ice Snow City as soon as possible. The Marshal's residence's dining hall was specially prepared for Shwepo's family. At noon, Shweyu, who was already hungry, pulled her mother to the dining hall. As soon as she entered, she smelled a rich fragrance and said in surprise, It smells so good. What is this dish? When she saw the dishes on the table, she couldn't help but be stunned. Could the dishes on the table still be called dishes? They were clearly pieces of art. The only thing she recognized was a plate of golden incense rings. Including the incense rings, there were a total of 6 dishes, but all of them were of the highest quality. Just the color and fragrance alone were enough to whet Shweyu's appetite. Madame Shwe was also surprised. Looking at the exquisite dishes in front of her, she asked suspiciously, Is there a new chef in the residence? Look at this group of people, their cooking skills are really good. Yes, there is a new chef. Isn't that me? Nian Bing's voice sounded. He walked in with the supreme 9 dragons cauldron of ice and fire 9 heavens in his hands. The jade-like cauldron was 2/3 full with pearl and jade kanji. Carefully placing the cauldron in the center of the table, Nian Bing smiled and said, I wonder if my cooking will satisfy Madam and young Mississippi. Shweyu looked at Nian Bing said in surprise, You are a chef? Why do I remember that you were wearing a magician's robe when you came? Nian Bing smiled and said, That was just for show. I came from the Breeze restaurant, so naturally I am a chef. This time, I'm here to ask Uncle Shweji to introduce me to the Marshal's mansion. At this moment, Shwepa finally came in from outside. He also smelled the fragrance. The moment he entered, he naturally saw Nian Bing, his wife, and his daughter. Looking at the 7 exquisite dishes on the table, his eyes couldn't help but light up. Although he didn't have high requirements for food, the 7 dishes made by Nian Bing were too tempting, especially the supreme 9 dragons cauldron in the center. The exquisite carvings on the cauldron were definitely not something an ordinary chef could make. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Marshal, please test my culinary skills. I think you will be satisfied." Although he didn't make the 7 dishes that he was best at, these 7 dishes were his earliest creation of the Ice and Fire 9 Heavens cuisine. Every dish was exquisitely crafted. If this couldn't satisfy Shwepa, then there were probably not many chefs in the entire Yangon continent that could satisfy him. Shwepa glanced at Nian Bing, then walked to the main seat and sat down. Madame Shwe hurriedly served her husband dinner. Shweyu couldn't wait any longer. "Father, I'm going to eat. It seems that the chef Uncle introduced to us is very good. The last time we went to Ice Snow City, you asked Uncle to borrow Uncle Ming Yuan, but Uncle didn't agree. This time, he really sent us a chef. I'm going to have a good meal in the future." Shwepa said in a deep voice, "You little girl, you don't have any manners at all. How are you like a girl? Don't learn from your sister. Don't tell me you want to be called a crazy girl too?" Shweyu was obviously afraid of Shwepa. She stuck out her tongue and didn't dare to say anything else. She immediately dug into the dishes on the table. Nian Bing stood at the side and didn't leave. He looked at Shwepo's family of 3 eating the food that he made and felt excited. How he wished that he could have lunch with his parents. But as far as he could remember, this was a simple request for ordinary people, but it had never been fulfilled. "Wow, it's delicious. What made this? It's so fresh. I haven't eaten anything so good before. It seems even better than Uncle Ming Yuan's." Shweyu couldn't help but exclaim after tasting the Ice and Fire 8 extremes. However, Shweji didn't stop her this time because he was also shocked by Nian Bing's culinary skills. Not only were the 7 dishes on the table beautiful, the taste was also unique. The seemingly ordinary ingredients were turned into delicacies after Nian Bing's processing. Every bite had a different feeling. Even the most ordinary rice was filled with a rich aroma. Seeing Shwepa pick up a golden incense ring, Nian Bing smiled and said, "Knead your delicate hands into jade, fry it in green oil until it's tender and deep yellow. Sleep in spring at night is light, and the beauty's arm is golden." A good golden incense ring not only needs to be golden in color, it also needs to be fragrant, crispy, and fragrant. Only then can it be called a golden incense ring. "I think I've done it." Shwepa didn't say anything. He put the golden incense ring into his mouth and took a bite. Just as Nian Bing said, fragrant, crispy, and fragrant. The rich aroma entered his mouth, and he couldn't help but eat the entire golden incense ring in one go. The food on the table kept decreasing. Whether it was Shwepa, Madame Shwe, or Shweyu, it was their first time eating so much food. Including the supreme 9 dragons cauldron that Nian Bing served at the end, all 7 delicacies were gone. Seeing the family of 3 finish the last bit of food, Nian Bing smiled and said, "Thank you for your praise, Marshal." Shwepa glanced at Nian Bing and said, "How do you know that I'm praising you?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "For a chef, it's naturally the greatest praise if the food he made is eaten clean, isn't it, Marshal Shwe?" Nian Bing nodded. Although he was a little suspicious of Nian Bing's identity, he couldn't make such a delicious meal in a day or 2. In his marshal's residence, there wasn't a chef who could do this. Therefore, even if someone wanted to help him, it was impossible. After tasting Nian Bing's food, his doubts were reduced a little. "All right, you've overpaid. From now on, you're a chef in my marshal's residence. However, you have to remember that my marshal's residence is very strict. If you break the rules, don't blame me for being merciless. How much do you want as a reward? Nian Bing smiled and said, Marshal, I don't care about the reward. Money is a fleeting thing. However, I have a small request. I'm here to be your chef, but I'll only cook dinner from now on. I've just arrived at Ice Moon City, so I want to walk around and learn from the famous chefs in Ice Moon City. Therefore, please allow me to not be in the residence during the day. Before Shuepa could say anything, Shueyu said, Then you can't make lunch for your cousins. Oh right, what's your name? My name is Nian Bing. Marshal, why don't you promise me this spare part? Although Nian Bing was answering Shueyu's question, her eyes were fixed on Shuepa. Shuepo's eyes flashed and said, All right, I'll allow you to only cook dinner. You're recommended by Shueji, so I won't treat you unfairly. From now on, you'll be paid 20 gold coins every month. Let the housekeeper arrange a place for you. After saying that, she got up and walked out of the dining hall. Once Shuepa left, Shueyu immediately jumped up and went to Nian Bing and said, Nian Bing, your cooking skills are amazing. Are you better than Uncle Ming Yuan? Nian Bing smiled and said, You can't say that. Chef Ming Yuan and I have our own strength. Miss, I'll take my leave first. After saying that, she bowed to Madame Shui and left the dining hall. Nian Bing decided to stay in Shuepa Manor as a chef. Of course, she had her own plans. If she wanted to change the world, she would have to enter the chaotic political situation of the Ice Moon Empire. Shuepa had a very high status in the Ice Moon Empire. If she stayed in his manor, she would be able to avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. This way, it would be very beneficial for her actions. After finding the housekeeper to arrange a place for her to stay, Nian Bing left Shuepo's manor and returned to the hotel. Kitty and Bing Yun had already returned. When she heard the door open, Kitty quickly ran over and said unhappily, Big brother Nian Bing, where did you go? Nian Bing smiled and said, Big brother went to find a job. I can't just sit around and eat. Job? Are you talking about work? Where is Big brother working? Kitty asked curiously. Nian Bing smiled and said, Don't ask about that. Big brother found a job as a chef. However, I only work there at night. I'll be back the next morning. Kitty, do you want to stay here with big sister Bing Yun or do you want to go home? I don't want to go home. Big sister Bing Yun is so nice. She bought a lot of good things for Kitty yesterday. Big brother Nian Bing, wait a moment. After saying that, she turned around and ran out. When she came back, she had a fur coat in her hand. The fur was brownish yellow, and the fine short hair exuded a faint luster. One look and one could tell that it was an expensive item. Kitty handed the fur coat to Nian Bing. Big brother, I bought this for you. It's cold now. How can you wear so little? Big brother, it must be hard on you. Your hair is all white. Taking the soft fur coat, Nian Bing felt a warmth in his heart. He knew that Kitty was sincerely good to him. Thank you, Kitty. Big brother's hair is white, not because he's tired. Kitty, this coat must have cost you a lot of money, right? How can Big brother take something from you? Kitty giggled and said, It's okay. Kitty doesn't have money. The money was borrowed from big sister Bing Yun. This coat was picked out for me by big sister Bing Yun. She said that snow leopard fur is the best for keeping warm. Big brother, try it on and see if it fits. Nian Bing couldn't bear to reject Kitty's kindness. He put on the snow leopard fur coat. Indeed, not only was the coat warm, it was also very light. It was very comfortable to wear. Nian Bing wore it just right. That's great. Big brother Nian Bing, this coat is just right for you. Kitty bought the right one. Kitty clapped her hands happily, as if she had gotten something good. Nian Bing smiled and said, Kitty, Big brother can't take your gift for free. Give me something in return. As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized that it was inappropriate. Apart from the 7 magic blades, he didn't have anything valuable on him. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. He grabbed Kitty's hand and said, Let's go. Let's borrow something from your big sister Bing Yun. Kitty was brought to Kitty and Bing Yun's room. Bing Yun was sitting on the bed meditating. When she felt Nian Bing's presence, she opened her eyes and said coldly, "Who told you to come to our room?" Nian Bing said, "Kitty gave me a coat. I have to give something in return. Miss Bing Yun, can you lend me a few white scrolls? I'll return them to you when I buy them." Bing Yun frowned, but still took out 3 white scrolls and threw them to Nian Bing. Nian Bing didn't go back to his room. He spread out the 3 best white scrolls on the table. A rainbow light flashed, and the eye of the sky appeared about a foot away from him. Nian Bing thought for a moment, then immediately gathered his magic and began to draw on the scrolls. His actions not only attracted Kitty's attention, Frozen Cloud couldn't help but stand up and watch Nian Bing's actions from a distance. Nian Bing's fingers trembled, and beautiful lines gradually appeared on the white scrolls. His movements were extremely fast. Every magic symbol was natural, and the symbols gradually became more complex. Bing Yun, who always prided herself on her knowledge of magic, was surprised to find that many of the magic symbols that Nian Bing drew were combinations that she hadn't seen before. She had worked hard on magic arrays before, but Nian Bing's speed was too fast. She could only vaguely feel some of it, but she couldn't be sure what kind of magic Nian Bing was drawing. As more and more magic symbols appeared and became more complex, Nian Bing's movements gradually slowed down. The final completion of the magic scrolls was the most important. Once he made a mistake or channeled magic unevenly, the scrolls would immediately be destroyed. Red and blue light flashed alternately. The 3 scrolls were completed at the same time. Nian Bing closed the scrolls and channeled the last bit of magic into them. Only then did he clap his hands in satisfaction. Success! He stuffed the 3 scrolls into Kitty's hands and smiled. "Kitty, you carry these 3 scrolls with you. These 3 are magic scrolls with the same origin of ice and fire. When combined, their power can reach level 7 or above. With your innate spiritual power, it should be easy for you to control their power. It's best to use them for self-defense. I've set up different defense levels for the 3 scrolls. When attacked with different degrees, one of them will be activated. Consider this a gift from Big Brother to you." "Okay. Thank you, Big Brother Nian Bing." Kitty put the 3 magic scrolls into her arms. She didn't know the power of these 3 scrolls, but Bing Yun was very clear about it. These 3 scrolls could produce level 7 magic. Moreover, they were magic scrolls created by the legendary Ning. They didn't even fail once when they were made. The value of these 3 scrolls was too high. Nian Bing's miraculous magic display made her look at him in a new light. "Nian Bing, how long do you plan to stay in Ice Moon City?" Bing Yun asked coldly. She naturally meant when Nian Bing would follow her back to the Ice God Tower. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "When I'm done, I'll naturally leave here. However, I'm not sure how long it will take, but it definitely won't be more than 3 months." Bing Yun was slightly angry. 3 months? Where do I have so much time to waste with you? Nian Bing said, "Then you can find someone to catch me at any time. As long as you can catch me, you can naturally bring me to the Ice God Tower." You. It wasn't that Bing Yun didn't think of using the power of the Ice God Tower to catch Nian Bing. However, a magic shooter with an innate domain was definitely not much worse than an ordinary magus, especially Nian Bing's strange innate domain. Moreover, he also had a strange shadow puppet. This made her have no confidence. If she brought the people of the Ice God Tower to catch Nian Bing, she was afraid that it would bring a lot of losses. Moreover, she was getting more and more confused about Nian Bing's strength. In a situation where she wasn't sure, she was more willing to wait. After arriving at Ice Snow City, she wasn't in a hurry to contact the forces of the Ice God Tower. Perhaps it was because of Kitty. Although Bing Yun hated Nian Bing, she also found that this man that she hated was leaving a deeper and deeper impression in her heart. Powerful magic, profound culinary skills. Every one of them left a deep impression on her. This afternoon, she and Kitty casually ate something outside. She was surprised to find that she didn't have the slightest interest in the snacks that she thought were delicious. Only then did she realize that she was already somewhat used to Nian Bing's food. Brother Nian Bing, Sister Bingyun, can you guys stop arguing? Kitty looked at one side and then looked at the other. She didn't like this kind of deadlock atmosphere. Nian Bing smiled and said, Okay, I'll stop arguing. Brother will go back first. You can accompany Sister Bingyun. After saying that, he glanced at Bingyun and turned to return to his room. After returning to his room, Nian Bing began his routine meditation. The previous day's operation was very unsmooth. Not only did he not make use of the Blood Lion cult's power, even Snow Soul was unwilling to help him meet Yan Feng. It seemed that it wasn't easy to help Yan Feng ascend to the throne. After all, one person's power was too weak. However, he didn't have any other power in the Ice Moon Empire that he could use. Now, he could only take one step at a time and hope that the seventh elder of the Blood Lion Hall would come quickly. He didn't know what their test was, but as long as it wasn't too difficult, he should be able to pass. Not long after Nian Bing used the Xiantian method to cultivate, there was a sudden change in his body. Oscar's gray energy in his chest suddenly trembled, and then, a faint golden light spread out from the center of the gray light. Nian Bing felt his heart skip a beat. An indescribable feeling instantly spread throughout his body. A layer of fine gray scales condensed on the surface of his skin, and on the scales, there was a faint golden light. Yay, 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 I did it! Oscar's excited voice sounded in Nian Bing's heart. Nian Bing said unhappily, What did you do? Can you help me take back this layer of scales first? Kaka, if you suddenly make some scales on me while I'm walking on the street, I'll strangle you to death. Oscar chuckled and said, I was too excited. You can't blame me. I'll be careful next time. Nian Bing asked curiously, What did you do? Could it be that you found a way to use your own energy so quickly? That's not it. However, I've cultivated the first layer of our dragon's mental cultivation method, so of course I'm happy. Although I can't use my energy effectively, but cultivating the first layer of mental cultivation method can greatly increase my strength. I'm in your body, so the increase in my strength is also good for you. Don't you feel that your body has become even more resilient? Moreover, cultivating the first layer of mental cultivation method, my energy is more condensed than before. Perhaps I'll be able to find out the characteristics of my energy soon. I already have some connections now, so I believe it won't take too long. Nian Bing said, Kaka, we're now sharing the same body. Is it possible that our energy can also be fused under certain spare parts? If that's the case, then with my ice and fire magic combined with the other 5 elements magic, combined with your ability, our combined strength will certainly be greatly increased. Kaka thought for a moment and said, It doesn't seem possible. Although I don't know why, my dragon's power doesn't reject your power. But the things you people cultivate are very different from the ones we dragons cultivate. It's very difficult to fuse them. However, because we share the same body, it can be said that our souls are connected. When you're in danger, or when you're particularly excited, I can feel it and immediately wake up from my deep sleep state. Because I still can't fully understand my own energy, it's impossible for me to help you attack, but it shouldn't be a problem for me to help you defend the body we share. Moreover, I found that after your energy awakens, my cultivation speed is particularly fast once you're in a meditative state. It seems that your magic is of great help to me. Nian Bing, when you feel danger, you can also take the initiative to wake me up and let me help you defend. With my defensive power, unless it's a forbidden spell, ordinary magic or physical attack, it's very difficult to cause harm to our body. Oh, by the way, the dragon's mantra that I cultivate was stolen from my father's heart. You must not tell anyone. This mantra can only be cultivated by the successor of the dragon god. When I broke through the first level, I suddenly had a feeling that even if you can't completely open the 7 acupoints to help me rebuild my body, once I reach the top 13 levels of the Dragon God mantra, it's possible for me to rebuild my body on my own. After all, my energy is too strange. Even the dragons themselves don't have records of it. Maybe, in the future, I can become an unprecedented powerhouse of the dragons. Nian Bing suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, Kaka, if I let you control my body, can you capture and obtain the secrets in other people's hearts? If she could use Kaka's ability to obtain the secrets in Bing Yun's heart, then, saving her parents would be possible, and she wouldn't have to continue with some of her later plans. Oscar said, That's impossible. My ability is very strange. It's very weak compared to my own dragon power. I can only obtain the secrets in other people's hearts when they open up to me with all their hearts. If I want to forcibly obtain other people's secrets, at least for now, it's impossible. Wait until my ability is strong enough, then I can try. Right now, my ability in this area is still too weak. I'm afraid it will backfire. What's wrong? Which girl have you taken a fancy to? You want to know the secrets in other people's hearts? Shut up, am I that kind of person? I'm doing it for something else. Kaka's answer made Ling Yanbing a little disappointed. She knew that her plan still had to be carried out. Kaka laughed. Of course it's that kind of person. But, the feeling of watching your erotic performance is really good. Even I feel hot. Fuck. Nian Bing raised her middle finger to the air. You peeping Tom, you better not let me know which female dragon you like in the future. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking revenge. Oscar laughed, Boss, don't. No matter what, we're still one body now. I'm younger than you, and I'm also your younger brother. How can you treat me like this? Is this okay? The next time you're intimate with your wife, tell me in advance. I'll definitely sleep tight and won't disturb you. Nian Bing snorted and said, That's more like it. Well, let's cultivate together. It felt very good to have a dragon to help Bai Ji defend. In the evening, Nian Bing said goodbye to Kitty and left the hotel again. Kitty was reluctant to let him leave, but after Nian Bing promised to make her breakfast and lunch tomorrow, she was able to leave. Bing Yun was naturally surprised when she heard from Kitty that Nian Bing was going to be a chef. She really couldn't figure out what Nian Bing was planning, but with Kitty, she wasn't afraid that Nian Bing would run away. After returning to the marshal's mansion, Nian Bing cooked a sumptuous dinner for Xue Po's family and returned to his room. Since he had to wait, he wasn't in a hurry. It was most important to improve his strength at every moment. He meditated from the meal until the next day. Nian Bing could clearly feel that his strength had increased a bit. The realm of Archmage had completely stabilized. The energy contained in the 7 balls of light was extremely large. Even without the enhancement of the Heavenly Eye domain, it wasn't that difficult to cast 2 spells of the 9th step at the same time. 5 days passed. Nian Bing lived a very regular life. Every morning, he would return to the hotel from the marshal's mansion to make breakfast for Kitty and Bing Yun. In the morning, he would meditate in the hotel and cook for them at noon. In the afternoon, he would occasionally walk around the streets and return to the marshal's mansion to make dinner. After dinner, he would immediately return to his room to meditate until the next morning. In the beginning, Xue Po was very worried about Nian Bing and sent someone to keep an eye on him. However, as the 5 days passed, Nian Bing didn't do anything harmful to the marshal's mansion. He only interacted with Kitty and occasionally took the kitty out on the street. In addition, Nian Bing's culinary skills were really good, so Xue Po gradually felt more assured about him. Xue Ji's reply came today. In the letter, he strongly praised Nian Bing's culinary skills. This greatly relieved Xue Po, and she withdrew her surveillance of Nian Bing. All of this was done in secret, but Nian Bing knew what Chu Xue Po was doing. With his Heavenly Eye Acupoint's super observational skills, no surveillance could escape his senses. After lunch, Nian Bing didn't plan to go out today. He returned to his room in the hotel and sat cross-legged on the bed, preparing to begin cultivating. He spent almost all of his free time on cultivation. He was very clear that his current strength was not enough to compete with a divine descent master. If he wanted to make a breakthrough, he couldn't hope for any miracles. Everything still depended on his own efforts and steadily increasing his strength. Just as Nian Bing was about to enter a meditative state, a light knocking sound came from the room's window. Nian Bing had already sensed who it was. He whispered, "Come in." The window quietly opened and a figure floated in. It was one of the two green pole warriors who followed Nian Bing to Ice Snow City. He first saluted Nian Bing, then said, "Sect Master, the elders of Blood Lion Hall have arrived. They invite you over." Nian Bing was overjoyed. They had finally arrived. He nodded to the green pole warrior and said, "Okay, let's go." He cast a wind-soaring spell on himself and followed the green pole warrior out of the window, heading towards the Warriors' Union. The Warriors' Union today was different from usual. There was a sign at the gate saying that all business was suspended. When Nian Bing arrived at the gate of the Union, the Hall Master of Ice Moon Hall, Yin Tu, personally welcomed him in. From Yin Tu's expression, Nian Bing understood that the 7 elders of Blood Lion Hall had already proven their identities. Yin Tu said respectfully, "Sect Master, you're here. Please come in." Nian Bing nodded and followed Yin Tu into the Warriors' Union. Under Yin Tu's lead, he came to the room where he had met Yin Tu before. The room was very large. Even if it could accommodate 20 or 30 people, it would not feel crowded. As soon as he stepped into the room, Nian Bing immediately felt a strong sense of oppression. It was definitely not an ordinary aura. Only a real expert could have such a powerful aura. There were 7 people in the room. They, who were sitting on the sofa, stood up when they saw Ling Bing enter with Yin Tuesday. Nian Bing nodded and said, "The 7 Blood Lion elders greet the acting sect master." They didn't greet him, but it was obvious that the 7 elders were shocked when they saw how young Nian Bing was. Acting sect master? There was an additional word, acting. It seemed that he was not the real sect master before he passed their test. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "Elders, you don't have to be so polite. Please take a seat." The 7 elders were dressed differently. The one in the lead looked much older than his grandfather, Prince Rong. His old face was covered with traces of wind and frost. He was also dressed very plainly. A grayish-white robe covered his medium stature. He was hale and hearty, and his dim yellow eyes shone brightly when he met Nian Bing's eyes. The other 6 elders were dressed differently. They looked about the same age as the leading elder, at least 80 or 90 years old. However, Nian Bing could clearly feel through his Tian Yen acupoint that there was a huge amount of explosive energy hidden in their old bodies. 3 of the other 6 elders were wearing magic robes. There were no symbols on the robes that represented their levels. They were divided into the fire element, ice element, and dark element. Nian Bing couldn't help but be shocked when he saw that one of the 3 elders was a darkness-type mage. One had to know that darkness-type mages were extremely rare in the current magical world. The other 3 elders were all dressed in warriors' attire. Although the attire wasn't extravagant, it gave off a lofty and majestic aura when they wore it. Chapter 141. Yin Tu didn't stay in the room for long and closed the door behind him. Nian Bing clearly felt that he was guarding the door. As the leader of a hall and the leader of all the secret forces of the Blood Lion cult in the Ice Moon Empire, he was actually guarding the door for the 7 elders. It was obvious how high the status of the 7 elders was in the Blood Lion cult. Nian Bing and the 7 elders sat down separately. The other 6 elders all closed their eyes and rested. Only the elder who had greeted Nian Bing before said, "Acting Hierarch, we want to know why you are preparing to summon a large number of fighters of the Blood Lion cult to the Ice Moon City. If your purpose is very beneficial to the cult, then even if you don't sit on the seat of the Hierarch, we will still support you to complete this operation. Otherwise, you will have to pass our test before you can issue the order of the Hierarch." Nian Bing smiled. Although the elders didn't say anything, he knew that his test had already begun. The 7 elders were already here. He didn't feel anxious and said with a smile, I haven't asked for the names of the 7 elders yet. The elder said indifferently, we don't need names anymore. You only need to know that our surname is Roan. You can call me Great Elder. At the same time, I am also the chief elder of the Blood Lion Hall. As he spoke, he pointed to the dark magician beside him who was dressed in a black magician's robe and said, This is the 2nd elder. Then, he pointed to Nian Bing one by one and told him the rankings of the elders. Among them, the 2nd elder, the 5th elder and the 6th elder were magicians. The other 3 elders were warriors. Nian Bing was secretly shocked. It was indeed the power of the Rong family. In the Rong family, these 7 elders were probably all experts of the same generation as his grandfather. With such a huge underground power, perhaps even the Huarong Empire would be afraid of them. Great Elder. Then I will call you as such. This time, I took the liberty to invite the elders here. I do have something important to do. Please wait a moment. The Great Elder interrupted Nian Bing. I want to know your identity. There's something I have to tell you first. The other members of the cult can be outsiders, and they can be promoted according to their abilities and merits. However, only the cult leader and the Blood Lion Hall elder must have the surname Rong. Since Demonic Lion has passed the position to you, I think you should understand the meaning of this position. Nian Bing nodded and said, That's right, I understand. The Blood Lion cult's greatest objective is to become the Rong family's support. Once something happens to the Rong family, what I need to do is to protect everything in the Rong family. My surname is Rong. The previous sect master, Mo Shi, is my grandfather. My name is Nian Bing. You can also call me Whitehair. The Great Elder looked at Nian Bing in surprise and said, We really didn't expect that Demonic Lion would pass the position to you after only a few years. It seems that he has his own considerations. But do you think you can do it? Nian Bing was shocked. Prince Rong had ruled the Rong family for dozens of years. Why did this Great Elder say that he had only been the Blood Lion cult's cult leader for a few years? The Great Elder seemed to have seen through Nian Bing's doubts and said indifferently, Before he became the cult leader, he had been the substitute cult leader for 52 years. Because he didn't pass our test at that time, he couldn't become the true cult leader. It was only a few years ago that he finally passed the test and received our approval. He is the one who can truly command the Blood Lion cult. As long as he receives our approval, the cult leader has the power to decide life and death in the cult. Nian Bing was shocked. She was very clear about Prince Rong's strength. According to this Great Elder, it seemed that Prince Rong would only become the cult leader after reaching the level of God Descending Master. It seemed that her test today wasn't that simple. Although she was shocked, Nian Bing didn't show it on her face. She smiled indifferently and said, Great Elder, what do you think I should do to be qualified for this position? After I promised Grandfather that I would become the secret protector of the Rong family in the future, I have considered the difficulties. The Blood Lion cult does indeed possess unimaginable power, but I also understand that it is not that easy to truly become the cult leader of the Blood Lion cult. The Great Elder looked at Nian Bing and said with a smile, It seems that you are very confident. You are Demonic Lion's grandson. Speaking of which, you should call me great-grandfather. Back then, Rong Yen stood out among all the Rong family's disciples. Although I am his father, I still passed my position to him, making him the substitute cult leader. All these years, although he couldn't completely command the Blood Lion cult, he didn't do anything wrong. I originally thought that he would pass the position of cult leader to Rong Yu, but I didn't expect it to fall on you. You should be Rong Yu's son, right? Nian Bing suddenly stood up from her seat. Looking at the Great Elder in front of her with a trace of kindness in her eyes, she bowed down without any hesitation. Great-grandfather, he was actually her grandfather's father, her great-grandfather. Although Nian Bing already had a high opinion of these 7 elders, she didn't expect their positions to be so revered. Zeng Suanrong, Nian Bing greets great-grandfather, greets great-uncles and great-grandfathers. Great-grandfather, the Rong you speak of is my great-uncle. My father is Rong Tian. The great elder looked at Nian Bing with some surprise and said, You are actually Rong Tian's son. I remember Demonic Lion told me that Rong Tian was kicked out of the family about 10 years ago. Could it be that your father went back? A trace of sadness appeared in Nian Bing's eyes. She shook her head and knelt just like that. She told the great elder about her life and the experiences of her parents in detail. After listening to Nian Bing's narration, the great elder frowned slightly. Sai, I met your father a few times before. Rong Tian is a very good child. If he could continue to develop in the Rong family, his achievements wouldn't be below his brothers. What a pity, for a woman, he actually fell to such a state. Nian Bing, do you blame your grandfather? Nian Bing said indifferently, Great-grandfather, do you think I should blame my grandfather? If he was willing to support the marriage between my father and mother, perhaps today's situation wouldn't have happened. Now that I have become a member of the Rong family again, I don't want to think about what happened in the past. However, I have to avenge my parents. The great elder looked at Nian Bing. His gaze turned from kind to calm. So you are saying that this time, you dispatched the Blood Lion Hall to deal with the Ice God Tower? Nian Bing, there is something I need to tell you. In the Blood Lion Hall, no one can do anything for selfish reasons. Not to mention that you are only a substitute leader now, even if you become the real leader. The 7 of us have the right to reject your proposal. Do you understand? Yes, I feel that you didn't mobilize the people of the hall for your personal revenge. Otherwise, you can only blame Demonic Lion for choosing the wrong person. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, Great-grandfather, the revenge of my parents is mine. I have never thought of using other people's hands to take revenge. You don't need to worry about this. I dispatched so many people for only one purpose, and that is to change the world. To change the world of the Ice Moon Empire. The great elder looked at Nian Bing with some astonishment and said, Tell us about it. Nian Bing stood up and sat back down. Imperceptibly, her body emitted a faint, dignified aura. Elders, you should all know the current situation of the Ice Moon Empire. Because the Ice Moon Empire hasn't started a war for over 100 years, the entire empire is recuperating. On the surface, the Longmu Empire is our Huarong Empire's biggest opponent. In fact, the Ice Moon Empire's national strength may not be comparable to the Longmu Empire's, but I dare say that in terms of fighting strength, they are definitely stronger than the Longmu Empire. Just look at the Ice God Tower and you can see this point. With the powerful Ice God Tower of the Ice Moon Empire, they are a great threat to our Rong family. Therefore, the only way is to completely destroy the Ice God Tower. Only by destroying it can the flames of our Rong family burn in every corner of the continent. Of course, the target of our operation this time isn't the Ice God Tower. The Ice God Tower's current development is of course mainly due to the rallying power of the Ice Goddess priests. However, without the full support of the Ice Moon Empire, they wouldn't have been able to reach their current supremacy. Therefore, if we want to attack the Ice God Tower, we must first isolate it. If we want to isolate it, we must start with the Ice Moon Empire. The Ice Moon Empire is the foundation of the Ice God Tower. As long as we can control the Ice Moon Empire, the Ice God Tower will no longer be terrifying. The Great Elder was over 100 years old. Although Nian Bing didn't point it out, he already understood Nian Bing's meaning. You mean, we should take advantage of the current princes of the Ice Moon Empire to fight for the throne? Nian Bing nodded and said, This is the best opportunity. At present, the fight for the throne is between 3 princes, the eldest prince, the second prince and the 5th prince. If my guess is correct, the eldest prince and the second prince are afraid that the 5th prince will steal their throne by relying on the favor of the king of the Ice Moon Empire, so they will definitely join forces to deal with him first. Although the 5th prince is favored by the king, in terms of strength, he can't contend against the 2 princes. This point can be clearly seen from the fact that he went to Ice Snow City to seek support. However, he also has the king's support, so the eldest prince and the second prince are afraid of attacking the rat for fear of breaking the vases. My plan is very simple. It is to support one of the princes to the throne. If this prince can be completely controlled by us, then do you think it will be beneficial to our bloodline cult and the Roan family? Of course, I know how difficult it is to succeed in this plan. We can only secretly use various circumstances to force the situation to our desired result. The great elder fell into deep thought after hearing Nian Bing's word. The other 6 elders also slowly opened their eyes. The pressure in the room obviously increased. Nian Bing sat there facing the 7 elders without any fear, waiting for their opinion. After a while, the great elder said, "What you said is indeed very tempting. Although our bloodline cult has a strong underground force, there are many things that we can't reveal. If we can control a country, it will be very beneficial to our Roan family's ultimate goal. However, this is easy to say but very difficult to do. How can you guarantee that the prince we support will still listen to our orders after he obtains the throne? I want to know which of these 3 princes you plan to support." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I don't plan to support any of them at all. I have never seen the first prince and the second prince, but since they can become the candidates for the throne, they have a lot of advantages in all aspects. Even if we can control them temporarily, we can't control them forever. As long as we give them a chance, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous to our bloodline cult. As for the 5th prince, I don't even need to talk about him. I have seen him before. He is a very gloomy person who doesn't show his emotions on his face. This kind of person can't be controlled at all. Therefore, the one I want to support is the 7th prince, who is the most inconspicuous among the 7 princes. I know this person. He has no desire for power. Moreover, he has a good relationship with me. If I want to control him, it will be much easier than controlling the other princes. I don't know if my choice will satisfy the elders." The first elder carefully looked at Nian Bing, as if he wanted to see something from her. After a long time, he sighed and said, "Now I gradually understand why your grandfather wanted to pass the position of hierarch to you. For many years, the successive hierarchs of our bloodline cult, including me and your grandfather, have mostly focused on preserving our achievements. However, none of them were as bold as you. If this operation fails, then the blow to our bloodline cult, and even the entire Roan family, will be immeasurable. Of course, if this operation succeeds, it will also be of great benefit to us. You are indeed a talent to be able to come up with this idea. It seems that letting you take the position of hierarch was not a mistake. Although I also understand that, to a certain extent, you still have some selfish motives. You want to deal with the Ice God Tower and avenge your parent. However, as long as one is a human, who doesn't have selfish motives? Moreover, this Ice God Tower is what we want to deal with. I think the operation you proposed is very interesting and worth considering. However, we must discuss the specific details carefully. From now on, I temporarily give you the ability to use all the intelligence resources of our cult. As for the battle strength of our cult, you can only use it when the plan is thorough and you have at least a 70% chance of success. Of course, you also have a shortcut to fulfill your wish. As long as you can pass the hierarch's test, the 7 of us won't make things difficult for you. You can do whatever you want to do. At that time, we will completely listen to your orders. Unless you make a mistake big enough to overturn the whole family, you will become the supreme ruler of the Blood Lion cult." Nian Bing said, "I have already heard about the test from Hallmaster Yin Dang, but I don't know how to confirm my identity as the hierarch." He knew very well that it would be very difficult for him to pass the test, that even Prince Rong had to reach the level of Divine Descent Master. However, these days of cultivation had increased Nian Bing's confidence in himself. No matter how difficult the test was, he had to give it a try. The Great Elder smiled faintly and said, "The test is actually very simple. There is only one question." As he spoke, he waved his hand and an incense stick appeared in his hand. Seeing the Great Elder casually summon a spatial magic item, Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. This Great Elder was a magician, but why didn't he wear a magician's robe like the other three elders? While Nian Bing was puzzled, the Great Elder continued, "It is very simple to pass the test. This incense stick is called Dragon Tian Xiang. Although it is very thin, it burns for a very long time, about half an hour. The fragrance has the effect of calming the mind. The test starts when the incense is lit and ends when it is extinguished. During this time, as long as you can withstand the full power of the seven of us, you will pass." Hearing the Great Elder's words, Nian Bing couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He was sure that these 7 elders, who were over 100 years old, were all swordsmen and archmage-level experts. Moreover, with their age, they were naturally very experienced in battle. It would be very difficult for Bai Ji to withstand their combined attacks for half an hour. Nian Bing felt a chill run down her spine when she thought about how powerful the 7 elders were when they joined forces. The Great Elder saw that Luan Bing was a bit stunned, so he faintly smiled and said, "Of course, you can choose not to participate in the test for the time being. We won't make things difficult for you. Since you are the substitute leader, you are the first person to be nurtured by our Rong family's next generation. You are still young and have a lot of time in the future. When you feel that you can withstand this test, you can come and find the 7 of us at any time." Taking a deep breath, Nian Bing looked into the Great Elder's eyes and firmly said, "I want to give it a try." The elders looked at Nian Bing with a bit of surprise. At first, when Nian Bing entered this room, they felt that it was very strange. In the history of the Blood Lion cult, there had never been anyone who could become the substitute leader at such a young age. Although the power of the substitute leader wasn't very great, it symbolized the best person to nurture the next generation of the Rong family. These 7 elders added up to more than 700 years old, so how could they put Nian Bing in their eyes? At this time, Nian Bing still decided to give it a try after hearing the method of the test. The 7 elders couldn't help but secretly admire this younger generation's courage. The Great Elder reminded, "You have to think carefully. During the test, we definitely won't hold back. If you are harmed in any way and your future development is hindered, then we have the right to abolish your position as the substitute leader." After all, this was his great-grandson, so the Great Elder couldn't bear to see Nian Bing take this test right now. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "How can I know if I can't do it before I try? Elders, you are all the elders with the highest seniority in the family, so I think you all understand the difficulty of this operation. If I have to ask for your instructions every time during the operation, and can't effectively command my subordinates, then the success rate will be greatly reduced. If I can't become the sect leader, then I'd rather give up this operation. Therefore, I have to try today's test." "Good, you are very brave. I didn't expect the Rong family to have such a talent like you in the next generation. Look at you, you seem to be very confident in yourself. Alright, we'll fulfill your wish. But you have to remember, although you are our junior and are related to us by blood, in the test, no one will go easy on you. We will attack with all our strength. Everything is up to you now. Yin Tu, come in." The door opened and Yin Tu walked in. Although he was at the door, the room was sealed by the few elders, so he didn't hear anything in the room. "Great Elder, what can I do for you?" The Great Elder said indifferently, "Take us to the underground fighting field of the Ice Moon Hall. At the same time, order your subordinates to seal off everything within 5 miles of the underground fighting field. Don't let anyone disturb us." Yin Tu glanced at Nian Bing in surprise. He was an elder of the Blood Lion sect, so he naturally knew what to do from the Great Elder's order. He didn't expect that Nian Bing would really take this test. Looking at Nian Bing, he couldn't help admiring her. Not to mention a 20-year-old young man, even he, a master of swordsman's level, didn't have the courage to take the test of the 7 elders. Thinking of Prince Rong, who was covered in scars and almost lost his life, Yin Tu looked at Nian Bing with pity. However, his hesitation only lasted for a moment. He didn't dare to disobey the great elder's order. Under Yin Tu's lead, Nian Bing and the 7 elders entered the backyard of the Warriors' Union. Yin Tu dismissed all his subordinates, and through some complicated operations, he opened a secret passage in the backyard's rockery. Only then did he lead Luan Bing and the 7 elders down the secret passage. Nian Bing couldn't help but laugh. This wasn't an underground force. The real base was underground. As she walked, she realized that the air in this underground world wasn't stuffy. She didn't know what method the Ice Moon Hall used, but they could still breathe fresh air even after walking a few hundred meters underground. As she walked, Luan Bing used her innate qi to quickly absorb the surrounding innate qi. Even if it was just a slight increase in her strength, she would be more confident in the following test. Deep underground, Nian Bing estimated that she and the 7 elders were about 500 meters underground, as expected of a sect that had been established for thousands of years. How much manpower and resources would it take to complete such a huge project? While thinking, she was brought to an underground square. The square was about 100 feet tall and 200 meters in diameter. The square was completely made of granite. Nian Bing could clearly feel that the hard granite had a strong magical aura. Yin Tu explained, "This is the secret training base of the Ice Moon Hall, a place that specializes in cultivating combat talent. Those who were able to come here for the collective training were all experts from their respective banners. There are also some special training facilities around the square. Only those who have passed the test of iron and blood can walk out of here. Every member of the Ice Moon Hall who comes here, if they can't pass the 7 tests set by the officers, they can forget about leaving here for the rest of their lives." Nian Bing smiled and continued, "I am the instructor." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Our Blood Lion cult is indeed the most powerful underground force in the continent. Let alone attacking a base like this, it is very difficult to even find it." Yin Tu said, "That's right. This underground base is about 480 meters underground. It is almost hollowed out from a huge piece of granite. Above, below, and around us there are at least several hundred feet of granite. Let alone 3 feet underground, even if you dig 300 feet underground, you won't be able to find this place. There is a special switch in the base. Once it is activated, the whole base will enter a sealed state. The enemy won't be able to find this place. Therefore, this is not only a place for us to cultivate new members, but also a place where we can adapt to emergencies." The Grand Elder said, "Yin Tu, you can go now. When you leave, activate the mechanism and seal this place." Yin Tu nodded and respectfully bowed to the 7 elders and Nian Bing before he left. Before he left, he gave Nian Bing an encouraging look. The Blood Lion cult was extremely strict, and he deeply felt the extraordinariness of this new cult leader. Along with the rumbling sound, the underground square only shook slightly amidst the loud noise. The exit was already sealed, but the air in the square didn't change at all. Nian Bing could feel that the innate qi here was very rich. Perhaps it was connected to some earth vein. If she chose to cultivate here, it would be very good. When the last crack on the stone wall closed, Nian Bing's heart entered a state of complete calmness. He opened all his heavenly eye acupoints, and released his energy to the maximum. His spiritual power spread to every corner of his surroundings, and he fully sensed the energy waves in the aura. At the same time, he absorbed all kinds of magical elements to strengthen his own magical power. At this time, her ability had reached its peak. The 7 elders slowly retreated to the side. The Great Elder waved his hand, and the long Tianxiang incense appeared once again. With a flash of light, the long Tianxiang incense was already far away on the socket. The tip of the incense was lit, and a faint wisp of smoke rose from it. Seeing this scene, Nian Bing was shocked. Only now did she understand that the Grand Elder was neither a warrior nor a magician. He was a magic warrior. At the same time, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. She had to face 3 magisters, 3 swordsmen, and 1 magic warrior. The method she used to deal with Hillard and Bing Yun would not work. Not to mention that the eternal sleeping spell formation had its limits. Even if it could be used, her battle power would be greatly reduced. Without her spiritual power, how could she control her 7 shadow puppets? It seemed that there was no chance for her to use tricks today. The 7 elders were not in a hurry to attack. The Grand Elder said, "Because the 7 of us are working together and you are so young, we will not use any weapons or magic items. Whether or not you can pass the test depends on your own strength. The test begins now." As he spoke, he raised his hand and struck Nianbing with his palm. A dark red stream of air condensed and didn't dissipate, attacking Nianbing's chest like a sharp blade. The other 6 elders also moved. The 3 magisters retreated at the same time, while the 3 swordsman elders floated forward, carrying tyrannical Do-Chi to cooperate with Nianbing's attack. Nianbing knew that the Do-Chi attack was only the first wave. When the 3 magisters finished their incantations, the real full-scale attack would begin. He didn't dare to be negligent. His eyes shone brightly, and a layer of milky white light emitted from between his eyebrows. He instantly opened the Heaven's Eye domain, controlling it within a 3-zhang radius around his body. At the same time, 7 shadow puppets appeared with 7 blades. Under the amplification effect of the Heaven's Eye domain, their bodies shone with an intense 7-colored radiance. The 7 blades were raised at the same time, interweaving with the energy of the 7 elements. Under Nianbing's control, the shadow puppets didn't attack. Instead, they waited until the 3 Do-Chi and 1 magic Do-Chi entered the Heaven's Eye domain before they began to resist. Nianbing once again deeply experienced the defensive power of the Heaven's Eye domain. The moment the elders' attacks entered the Heaven's Eye domain, the domain automatically reacted, quickly weakening the attributes of their Do-Chi. At the same time, under the effect of the 7 elements, the domain took on a viscous shield shape, greatly weakening the attacks of the 4 elders. The shadow puppet was the first to move under Nianbing's control. The demon-devouring blade glowed with a dark light as it clashed with the first elder's demon Do-Chi. As for the other 6 shadow puppets, they matched fire with ice, wind with light, and space with earth as they clashed with the attacks of the other 3 elders. In this first attempt, Nianbing chose to meet the attacks of the 4 elders head-on. Boom, 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 boom. For muffled sounds rang out. Under the guidance of the divine power, Nianbing's face paled, and he took 3 steps back before he could steady himself. The 7 shadow puppets' radiance dimmed at the same time, then returned to normal. Light and shadow flickered, and the shadow puppet broke free from Nianbing's control. The black figure instantly reached the limit of its speed, and it actually overtook the 4 elders in front of it, directly pouncing towards the 3 archmages behind it. Nianbing only felt his body shake violently for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. He no longer cared about the shadow puppet that had lost control. With a flash of silver light, his body instantly moved 30 feet to the side, dodging the attacks of the 4 elders. In a battle, stalling for time was the most important. The 4 elders attacking Nianbing simultaneously revealed looks of surprise, but their reactions were incomparably fast. Immediately, 2 of them turned to face the shadow puppet behind them, while the first elder and the 4th elder continued to attack Nianbing. The first elder was extremely fast, his dark red light supporting his body as he flew close to the ground. His hands crisscrossed, one palm strike after another sealing all directions around Nianbing. Nianbing didn't panic, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He waved his right hand, and with a flash of silver light, the space elemental shadow puppet floated over and fused with his body. At this moment, the ever-changing hexagram sword also entered his grasp. With the sword in hand, Nianbing's figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already 30 feet away. Space elemental magic was the best way to deal with a warrior's attacks, and this method of fusing with the shadow puppet was something that Nian Bing had just discovered in the last 5 days. At this moment, his body's speed was exactly the same as the space elemental shadow puppet, and his body would immediately flash away as soon as he willed it. Although the two elders were at the same level as the swordsman, they couldn't do anything against Nian Bing's continuously flashing body. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nian Bing sent out the remaining 5 shadow puppets. Their targets were the 3 Archmage tutors. As long as the Archmage tutors weren't allowed to display their full strength, Nian Bing was confident that he could deal with the 2 swordsman tutors. He didn't want to win, but he wanted to make no mistakes. Chapter 142. The shadow puppet's target was very clear. It was the second elder who specialized in dark magic. The Devourer's blade drew a long black arc in the air as it flew towards the second elder's head. The 2 swordsman elders behind him rushed forward at the same time, directly attacking the shadow puppet. They wanted to force it into a defensive stance. However, the shadow puppet's strength was far beyond the 2 elders' expectations. It attacked the second elder without changing its momentum, but a huge figure suddenly appeared behind it and blocked the 2 elders' attacks. With 2 loud bangs, the 3rd and 7th elders were knocked back. The one that had suddenly appeared was the dark demon rat that the shadow puppet had subdued in the Devourer's blade gem. After blocking the 2 elders with its mountainous body, the dark demon rat immediately spat out a black flame towards the other 2 magisters. The sudden change immediately turned Nian Bing's unfavorable situation around. The second elder naturally felt the power of the shadow puppet. The dense evil aura enveloped his head, and he had no choice but to react. The incantation he was chanting was interrupted midway. He clasped his hands together, and a circle of black light floated up. Combining his own magic power and a low-grade scroll, the black light released by the second elder covered the shadow puppet. But at this moment, something happened that shocked him. The Devourer's blade suddenly transformed into a black net in the air. The dark energy he released was forcibly sucked into the net, instantly fusing with the Devourer's blade and becoming the shadow puppet's own energy. Not only that, the second elder felt as if all the mana in his body was about to burst out of his body. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation, but after all, he had 100 years of battle experience. He immediately took a step back and used his powerful mental strength to forcibly cut off the pulling force. However, even though he cut off the suction force, the Devourer's blade still fell. At this moment, 2 rays of light appeared at the same time. 2 powerful spells of the 7th step formed a barrier in front of the second elder, forcibly blocking the attack of the Devourer's blade. A streak of blood appeared on the demon-devouring blade, shattering 2 tier 7 spells in an instant. The shadow puppet's body followed the movement of the blade, increasing its speed once again as it chased after the retreating second elder. The Blood Lion Hall's 7th elder had been working together for a long time. Seeing that the second elder was completely suppressed by the shadow puppet, the great elder and the 4th elder immediately gave up on Nian Bing and rushed back. The 3rd elder and the 7th elder had already blocked the light that the dark demon rat spat at the magisters and were fighting it. Black energy gushed out of the dark demon rat's body. Although some of its energy was absorbed by the shadow puppet, it was still a powerful magical beast that had evolved into a 5th-grade magical beast. Although its mountain-like body was not very agile, waves of corrosive dark air flowed out of its body and blocked most of the attacks from the 3rd elder and the 7th elder. For a moment, the 2 elders could not do anything to it. At the same time as the fire, 5 rays of light lit up at the same time. The first to attack was the light shadow puppet. The light that penetrated the heaven and earth shone brightly, and appeared right in front of the 6th elder. The wind shadow puppet flew like the wind towards the 5th elder. At this moment, the 5th elder's magic burst out, actually trapping the light and wind puppets in a circle. Due to the constant collision of energy, they were unable to attack the sixth elder. At this time, the sixth elder also began to chant a lengthy magic incantation. The earth shadow puppet merged with the dark demon rat's body, greatly increasing its defense, allowing it to withstand the attacks of the third elder and the seventh elder. The red and blue light blocked the dark demon rat. Nian Bing knew very well that if the first elder, the fourth elder, the third elder and the seventh elder joined forces, the dark demon rat would not be able to resist. Therefore, as soon as the ice shadow puppet and the fire shadow puppet appeared, their energy was increased to the limit. The sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god created a net of light at the same time. The red and blue light intertwined in the air, blocking the two elders. However, the two elders were too strong, especially the first elder's do-chi of fire. Although the ice shadow puppet and the fire shadow puppet were of the same origin, and the two extreme energies interacted with each other to produce great power, it still could not completely stop the two elders. The first elder and the fourth elder punched out at the same time, breaking the ice shadow puppet's attack with a loud bang. At the same time, the first elder borrowed the force of the impact to accelerate his body in the air. His hands turned into countless afterimages of his palms, and the dark red light condensed in the air and rushed straight for the shadow puppet's back. The second elder snorted coldly, and the black magic robe on his body suddenly replaced his body to meet the shadow puppet's attack, while he himself instantly retreated 10 meters away. It was the shadow puppet technique of the dark magic. The magic robe was split in two, and the shadow puppet immediately turned around. The demon-devouring blade in its hand burst out a thick black flame, and collided head-on with the first elder, who was attacking with all his strength. The shadow puppet's body was thrown back at the same time as the first elder. At this time, the fifth elder had already used magic to control the wind shadow puppet and the light shadow puppet. The sixth elder had been chanting non-stop and was about to succeed. The fourth elder also used his Saint Do-Chi to contend with the ice shadow puppet and the fire shadow puppet, and barely managed to fight them to a draw. Just as the situation was about to change, Nian Bing suddenly appeared at the back of the dark demon rat. The seven-colored light was released without any reservation and instantly covered the entire battlefield. With the support of the Sky Eye Realm, the six shadow puppets and the dark demon rat were all greatly energized. The second elder, the fifth elder, and the sixth elder, who were using magic, all felt the power of their magic stagnate, and the power was greatly reduced. It was not that Nian Bing did not want to help his shadow puppets earlier. However, although the shadow puppet's energy was separated from him, and they were relying on the seven magic blades, their spiritual power was still connected to Nian Bing's. When the shadow puppet launched its attack, and Nian Bing sent out 5 shadow puppets to help it, Nian Bing suddenly realized a problem. The energy of his 7 shadow puppets seemed to have broken through a realm, and they were much stronger than before. This was especially so for the shadow puppet, which was even stronger than an ordinary swordsman. The other 6 shadow puppets were also close to the level of swordsmen. The increase in energy was naturally a good thing, but for Nian Bing, who had been using the Sky Eye Realm and controlling the shadow puppets, it was a huge burden. If it were not for the Sky Eye acupoint, he would not even be able to control these shadow puppets at the same time. That was why his speed was a little slower. But with such a good opportunity, how could he let the 7th elder regain his advantage? Without caring about the cost, he immediately used the Sky Eye Realm on the back of the dark demon rat to increase and weaken its power to the maximum, helping his bodyguards to launch a crazy counterattack against the 7th elder. The first elder let out a long whistle in the air. Originally, the 7 elders looked down on Nian Bing, but Nian Bing was their junior after all. Although they did not say anything, they only used half of their strength. However, the sudden change in the situation made the first elder unable to hold back. His whistle was to tell his brothers to go all out. The third elder, the fourth elder, and the seventh elder gave up on their opponents at the same time and flew into the air to meet up with the first elder. The fire shadow puppet, ice shadow puppet, light shadow puppet, and earth shadow puppet also returned to Nianbing's side at twice the speed. The dark red air that the shadow puppet spat out was even stronger than before, and it went straight for the four elders in the air. The four shadow puppets also raised their own energy sources, and the four magic blades shone brightly as they attacked at the same time. The four blades condensed together in the air. With ice and fire as the foundation, and light and earth as the support, this was undoubtedly a fusion magic of the four elements. Although each of them was only at the 7th level, under the effect of their mutual promotion, this attack was actually at the 10th level or above. Unfortunately, Nianbing miscalculated this time. The power of the 400-year-old swordsman attacking at the same time was something that could only be understood after truly facing it. 4 people, 8 palms, 8 streams of air condensed to the size of a bowl, but when the 8 streams of air collided with the combined attack of the 4 shadow puppets, Nianbing immediately realized that something was wrong. The Sky Eye realm could undoubtedly strengthen one side and weaken the enemy at the same time. However, if the enemy's strength was too strong, they would still be unable to resist. Nianbing endured the pain and reacted as quickly as possible. In the instant when the energies collided, he suddenly recalled the 4 shadow puppets, and under the effect of the spatial shadow puppet possession, he flashed more than 10 feet away. The violent explosion caused the entire underground plaza to tremble. Nianbing's body shook violently, and the aftermath of the explosion sent his body flying all the way to the stone wall in the distance. Nianbing felt dizzy from the impact. The place where he fell happened to be very close to the incense stick. Nianbing glanced at it and saw that only a third of the incense stick had been burned. The 4 swordsmen attacking at full strength was terrifying. Although Nianbing recalled them quickly, the 4 shadow puppets had already disappeared. Their innate chi remained in the hilts of the 4 divine blades, but if they wanted to restore it, it was not something that Nianbing could do at the moment. As the shadow puppet's strength increased, he would have to spend more time and energy to restore them to their original form. If he used magic to summon the shadow puppets now, it was very likely that he would use up the innate chi that he had painstakingly condensed in the divine blades, and the newly condensed shadow puppets would be much weaker. The unlucky one was the dark demon rat. It might be fast underground, but in this huge plaza, its mountain-like body could not dodge even if it wanted to. In the huge shockwave, its entire body was flipped over, and its huge body rolled on the ground several times before stabilizing. Wounds intertwined on its huge body. Fortunately, not only did it have the dark element, it also had the earth element, and its defense was extremely strong. That was why its body did not disintegrate. Even so, the dark demon rat was still heavily injured. Before Nianbing could recover from the shock, a green light flashed, and the wind of freedom returned to him. The wind shadow puppet had been destroyed by the 5th elder's sudden burst of magic. Fortunately, its innate chi was preserved at the last moment. Black light flashed, and the shadow puppet retreated instead of advancing. It drew an arc in the air and flew toward Nianbing. At the same time, the dark demon rat was also taken back into the demon-devouring blade. Just as it retreated, the place where it had originally been was already covered by dark blue flames. It was the ultimate true fire. Nianbing stood up from the ground and kept chanting. The sigh of the snow goddess, the morning dew dagger, and the roar of the fire god appeared in his left and right hands, respectively. Without the shadow puppet, he could only rely on his own strength now. The shadow puppet stood beside Nianbing. Its chest, which was formed from energy, was heaving up and down. Clearly, it had suffered quite a bit in the face of the Elder's all-out attacks. The dark energy had also been depleted to a certain extent, but a red light appeared in its eyes again. It was a red light of persistence. The 7 elders gathered together once again. They stabilized their auras. Even though they had destroyed Nianbing's 5 shadow puppets, attacking with all their might in the Heaven's Eye domain had drained a lot of their mana and battle chi. They realized that Nian Bing was much stronger than they had imagined, especially that strange attack style of his. Even now, they still had a lingering fear in their hearts. The one who left the deepest impression on them was the second elder. At the last moment, he had used all his strength and some special dark magic he had researched. However, the shadow puppet seemed to be his nemesis. All his dark magic was absorbed by the shadow puppet. If the sixth elder's fire magic hadn't arrived in time, the second elder would have been sucked dry by the shadow puppet. Good, innate realm. I trust demonic lion's judgment more and more. Although he had suffered a small loss, the first elder's eyes revealed a gratified look. He gathered his battle chi and smiled at Nianbing. Unfortunately, Nianbing wasn't in the mood to answer him. Her chanting speed increased, and 2 red and blue hexagrams had already condensed in the air. Ice Goddess, please bestow upon me the eternal ice, God of fire. Please bestow upon me the phoenix's nirvana flame. In my name, the limit of ice and fire, fuse. Red and blue light rose at the same time. Gradually, under the continuous increase of Nian Bing's magic power, the original blue light turned into blue and white, and the red light turned into a deep blue flame. Nian Bing was very clear that she might not be able to hold on. Now, she could only try her best. Perhaps there was still a chance. Inside his body, the umang of the 5 elemental light orbs that revolved around the ice and fire orbs gradually dimmed. Under the effects of the mimicry spell, Nian Bing gradually converted their magic power into ice and fire energy. They knew that this was their last chance. The 7 elders were all recovering their strength. If they couldn't take advantage of this opportunity to achieve their goal, then they definitely wouldn't give them another chance to chant the incantation. A heavy atmosphere spread in the air. Looking at the dense ice and fire elements surrounding Nian Bing's body, the 7 elders' eyes also revealed a dignified expression. The 4 elders who were proficient in martial arts took a step forward, and the 3 archmages continuously chanted. At this time, the dragon Tianxiang was already halfway through burning. Nian Bing didn't use any more powerful magic. After condensing the magic power of ice and fire, he made a bold choice. He was very clear that in terms of strength, he might be able to compete with any one of the elders. With the addition of the innate domain, dealing with 2 elders shouldn't be too much of a problem. With the help of the shadow puppet, even if the 3 elders attacked with all their strength, he would have a way to deal with them. Moreover, he also had the 7 peerless magic blade. With their amplification of magic, he should be able to contend with the 4 elders at his limit. Although this kind of strength was already very shocking, and his current overall strength was between that of an archmage and a divine mage, but he was facing 7 elders right now. From the position of the 7 elders, they were extremely proficient in teamwork. If he faced them head-on, he was afraid that he wouldn't even have the slightest chance. Right now, the only thing he could rely on was the strong mental strength that was the foundation of the Tian Yin acupoint. He didn't need to control the shadow puppet, so he could use most of his mental strength. Therefore, facing them head-on wouldn't do him any good. Balls of red and blue light gradually appeared around Nian Bing's body. When these balls of light first appeared, they were all about a foot in diameter. But under the tyrannical compression of Nian Bing's mental strength, they quickly became smaller. Soon, the balls of light became fist-sized balls of light. Because of the extreme use of his mental strength, the space between Nian Bing's eyebrows gradually lit up, and a soft white light drifted out. Nian Bing's eyes revealed a profound divine light. Even the 7 elders of the Blood Lion Hall didn't dare to look him in the eye at this time. The number of balls of light increased under the amplification of the Tian Yin domain. Several hundred balls of light that possessed a strong compression force constantly flickered in the air. Behind each ball of light, there was an invisible line that was pulled by mental strength. Under the control of Nian Bing, they scattered into the surrounding space. The sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god were shining with the most intense light in Yen Bing's hands. It was precisely because they possessed a huge amount of energy that Yen Bing was able to condense more magic power in a short period of time. This time, Yen Bing had almost exhausted all of his magic power. He wanted to use techniques to deal with these 7 elders to the end. Tian Xiang, the dragon. When Yen Bing's magic bullets of the same origin of ice and fire had spread to nearly a third of the square, half of them were finally burnt. Whether or not they could continue to hold on depended on Yen Bing's control over these magic bullets. With a low shout, the 5th and 6th elders were the first to make their move. Yen Bing was very familiar with the magic used by the 5th elder. It was the fire god's right hand of the 9th step. The huge fire god's right hand brought about an illusory water shadow in the air. The area of the huge hand kept expanding, striking the bright magic balls in front of Yen Bing. The 6th elder's movements were deliberately slower than the 5th elder's by 2 beats. Extremely cold air spread from the ground. It was the frozen hell spell of the 9th step. This spell could produce a low temperature of -90 degrees Celsius. Moreover, if the caster had enough magic power, he could completely control it to achieve a large area effect. The reason for this choice was that the 6th elder wanted to cooperate with the 5th elder. The reason why the fire god's right hand expanded the area of attack was to destroy more of the magic bullets of the same origin of ice and fire. The frozen hell on the ground would reduce the temperature in an instant after the magic bullets were destroyed, slowing down Yen Bing's movements. After all, these 2 spells were of the 9th step. Even the sky's eye domain could only weaken a part of their offensive power. After the previous exchange, the 7 elders already had a certain understanding of Yen Bing's abilities. The 5th and 6th elders only had one goal in mind, and that was to destroy Yen Bing's strength and trap him. The ones who would really defeat Yen Bing would be the 4 elders who were skilled in martial arts. Their plan showed that they valued Yen Bing very much. As the frozen hell spread, the 1st elder led the 3rd, 4th, and 7th elders into the air. Relying on their powerful Saint Do Chi, they actually floated in the air. The light of their Do Chi was completely burning into a silver color, and the silver flames illuminated the entire square. As soon as the magic bullets were released, they would certainly attack Yen Bing as quickly as possible. The 1st elder's target was the shadow puppet, while the other 3 elders locked onto Yen Bing, who was in the sky's eye domain. The 2nd elder, who had consumed the most energy, was still chanting an incantation. His voice sounded like a whimper, and it was impossible to hear what he was chanting. However, from the dark aura around his body that was gradually becoming stronger, this magic bullet was by no means simple. The fire god's right hand expanded to a diameter of 10 feet, which almost covered half of the magic bullets of ice and fire in the air. The 5th elder had already reached the realm of Archmage a few decades ago, so he was very clear about the power of the compressed magic bullet. However, he was not worried because the explosion of the magic bullets had a large coverage area. As long as his fire god's right hand detonated a portion of the magic bullets, he was afraid that Yen Bing's magic bullets would be finished. However, something unexpected happened. The hundreds of magic bullets of ice and fire that condensed almost all of Yen Bing's magic bullets of ice and fire suddenly moved, and at an extremely fast speed. The magic bullets split into 2 and quickly spread out to the sides, directly avoiding the fire god's right hand in the air. 4 of the magic bullets drew an arc in the air, like meteors catching up with the moon, and met the 4 elders in the air. The other magic bullets were scattered like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. Some flew straight, some slanted, and some drew an arc, bypassing the 4 elders in the distance and going straight for the 3 magicians in the back. The 4 elders in the air shouted at the same time and each threw a punch, attacking the magic balls of ice and fire that were rushing towards them. They were not in a hurry, as the 3 elders in the back had long been prepared. Although Yen Bing's magic was strong, It was impossible to rely on these magic bullets to finish off the 3 archmages in the back. So, they only had one goal, and that was to first defeat Nian Bing. However, the 4 elders never thought that their punch, which they were confident in, would miss. The Saint Do Qi they emitted was in itself restraining the aura around them. So they were afraid that the 4 magic bullets would change direction again, but who knew that the 4 magic bullets themselves would emit a strange aura? The 2 energies of ice and fire rubbed against each other to create a strange magnetic field, which floated back in the restraints of the Do Qi, and then accelerated forward. However, this time, the direction of the forward movement changed, and the 4 magic bullets rushed towards a single location. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The Do Qi that the 4 elders released could not be taken back, so the 4 of them could only condense their Saint Do Qi to protect themselves. The great elder's reaction was the fastest. His body twisted strangely in the air, and the sky was filled with shadows of his legs. A huge amount of Do Qi roared out like a tide, and at the same time, it carried a strong blue flame. He was a fire element earth demon warrior, and also the strongest of the 7 elders. With a loud bang, the 4 magic bullets of the same origin of ice and fire suddenly collided with each other, and at the moment they collided, Nian Bing's Heaven's Eye domain spread out and enveloped them, causing the aura of ice and fire to rise to another level. At the same time, under the effect of the Heaven's Eye domain, the light of Fire God's right hand, which was 10 meters away from Nian Bing, dimmed a little, and its speed decreased a lot. The huge impact with the 2 opposite auras actually forced the 4 swordsmen 3 meters away. Although they did not suffer any injuries, the aura of ice and fire rushing into their bodies at the same time was not pleasant. The 4 of them used their Do Qi to expel the 2 energies from their bodies. But in this short period of time, Nian Bing could do a lot of things. A black figure suddenly appeared in front of Nian Bing, and the demon-devouring blade met Fire God's right hand. It wasn't that Nian Bing didn't want to use her spatial magic to escape, but the surrounding space was already distorted under the influence of the 9th step spell. She could only move within the range of Fire God's right hand's attack. The overly large spell collided with the demon-devouring blade, and immediately brought about a strong fluctuation of magic elements in the air. A large hole more than 10 meters long was torn open by the demon-devouring blade. After all, although it was a 9th step spell, the attack range was too large, and its power would be reduced a lot. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Nian Bing used instant teleportation, and fluttered out of the attack range of Fire God's right hand. The shadow puppet also burst out a cloud of black gas, blocking the hole, and followed Nian Bing out. However, at this time, the black gas around his body had dimmed a lot, obviously because he had used up too much energy. Nian Bing was dodging the magic attacks, but she didn't stop controlling her own magic bullets. The originally flying magic bullets immediately changed when they came within 15 meters of the 3 magicians. Like soldiers under the command of a marshal, they lined up neatly in 3 rows, and rushed towards the 3 magicians. Exploding at a point, this was what Nian Bing wanted to do. A magic bullet of the same origin of ice and fire was nothing to a magician at the level of a magician. Even if the magic bullets were compressed and the energy dispersed, it was only equivalent to a spell of the 5th or 6th step. Even if they were attached with the aura of ice and fire, it wouldn't have much of an effect on a magician who originally cultivated magic. However, if these spells were to explode at a point, then not to mention the magnitude of the explosion, just the storm of ice and fire they formed wouldn't be weaker than a 10th step spell. After all, it wasn't just all of Nian Bing's magic power, but also the magic energy absorbed in the air. In addition to the amplification of the sigh of the snow goddess and the roar of the fire god, as well as the uniqueness of the same origin of ice and fire, Nian Bing's magic power was definitely stronger than any of the 3 magicians. However, the first elder and the other 3 swordsmen naturally had their reasons for not worrying about the 3 magicians behind them. 100-year-old magician definitely couldn't compare to Nian Bing in terms of battle experience. Facing the magic bullets of the same origin of ice and fire, although the three magicians were surprised by Nian Bing's exquisite control of magic, they didn't panic in the slightest. The three of them quickly retreated together and stretched out their hands at the same time. In a flash of light, red, blue, and black rays of light condensed in the air. The magic that the second elder had prepared before finally appeared. The fifth elder and the sixth elder relied on pure magic power to form a huge shield in the air in front of the three of them, and in front of the second elder, black figures appeared one after another. These figures were 30 feet tall and were sitting on huge warhorses. Each of them held a huge spear that was 15 feet long in their hands. There were a total of 4 of them, and they stood in front of the 3 elders. Nian Bing cried out involuntarily, "Darkness summon, ultimate dark night." Of course he knew this magic. This was clearly an 11th step dark forbidden spell. With his ability, he wasn't able to use such a powerful forbidden spell. He didn't think that it would appear in the hands of the second elder, who had already used up a lot of magic power and didn't use any magic items. The 3 magic balls of the same origin of ice and fire merged into one and blasted towards the barrier that the 5th and 6th elders had set up together from 3 different directions. Under Nian Bing's deliberate control, the magic balls of the same origin of ice and fire produced a certain degree of overlapping damage. When a third of the magic balls blasted through, the barrier was already on the verge of collapse. At this time, the 4 tall ultimate warriors of darkness made their move. 4 of their 5-foot-long spears stabbed out at the same time, immediately piercing through the 4 magic balls. The 4 spears flashed one after another, transforming into a sea of spear shadows. The power of a forbidden spell was terrifying. They didn't give the magic balls a chance to explode together. The 4 ultimate warriors of darkness rushed out, and within the spear shadows, the magic balls that had gathered all of Nian Bing's magic power were reduced one after another. Although Nian Bing's control was exquisite, the 4 ultimate warriors of darkness were really too strong. Not only were their attacks tyrannical, but their speed was also as fast as lightning. It was too late for the magic balls to break free. At this time, the first elder led the other 3 elders to launch a storm of attacks on Nian Bing. Their fighting auras crisscrossed the air, and streaks of fighting auras continuously chased after Nian Bing's flickering figure, making it so that she didn't have much energy to control the magic. Helpless, Nian Bing could only give the last order to her magic balls, exploding them together. The air seemed to have stopped at this moment. The 4 elders who were originally attacking Nian Bing pushed their fighting auras to the maximum at the same time. 4 silver balls of light scattered in all directions, and the entire underground square sunk into a hell of ice and fire. The 9th step magic that was originally released by the 5th elder was completely swallowed by this hell of ice and fire. The temperature in the air alternated between hot and cold, and a violent energy storm swept out. The barrier that the 5th elder and 6th elder jointly set up was smashed to pieces. The 2nd elder, 5th elder, and 6th elder were surrounded by the dark airflow formed by the ultimate warriors of darkness, protecting the 3 archmages. The forbidden spell that the 2nd elder used wasn't a powerful one-time use forbidden spell, but the 4 ultimate warriors of darkness were equivalent to 4 powerful dark swordsmen. Although they could only be maintained for a limited time, the destructive power they could cause in a short period of time was incomparably great. Although the eruption of the hell of ice and fire temporarily blocked the 4 warriors of darkness, once they were released, even 4 real swordsmen would only be able to resist. Nian Bing was actually very helpless. If it weren't for the fact that he had no other choice but to summon the ultimate warriors of darkness and the 4 elders, he wouldn't have chosen to completely erupt his magic power. He was very clear that once the eruption of energy passed, the 3 archmages would be freed up to deal with him, who had lost most of his magic power. It was simply impossible for him to escape. However, at this time, he had no other choice. Chapter 143. The combat auras released by the four elders formed a large net in the air. Although she had the support of the shadow puppet and shadow puppet, the space that Nian Bing could dodge was getting smaller and smaller. If she were to collide with any of the elders' combat auras, she would definitely suffer a heavy blow. That was why she had no choice but to do so. The ice and fire hell created by the violent explosion also affected Luan Bing. His sky eye domain had become extremely weak due to the lack of mana to support it. The powerful impact once again forced him to the edge of the stone wall. Although he still had some willpower, without the support of mana, he was already at the end of his rope. This was the first time the 7 shadow puppet had been destroyed. His most powerful spell did not cause any real damage to the 7 elders. Unless he used the Curse of Life, there was nothing else he could use to defend against the elders' attacks. However, how could he use the Curse of Life in a test like this? Nian Bing panted heavily as she used the sky eye domain and her strong body to defend against the impact of the ice and fire hell. She kept thinking about what she should do next. At this time, Tianxiang was burning in a corner and was not affected by the ice and fire hell. A third of her body was still burning. "Boss, can you do it? If not, let me do it." Oscar's lazy voice sounded in Nian Bing's mind. The gray aura in his chest started to stir. His voice immediately woke Nian Bing up from her thoughts. She asked hesitantly, "Can you do it? The elders outside are each stronger than the last." Although Oscar was the descendant of the Dragon King, he had only hatched for a short time. Oscar chuckled and said, "Of course we can't fight head-on, but if I were to use this body, I would be stronger than you. You don't have much magic left, so go and rest for a while. Leave it to your brother. Anyway, we don't have much time left, so we'll just have to hold on." He was one with Nian Bing and their souls were connected. When Nian Bing first started fighting the 7 elders, he was already awake. Through the connection between their souls, he naturally knew what was going on in this battle. Nian Bing could no longer hold on, so Oscar suggested that he should continue to face the next test. At this time, Nian Bing had no other choice. She agreed and withdrew her Qi Shen power. She retracted her soul into her Tian Yin acupoint and gave up control of her body. Oscar had not been in control of this body for quite some time. When he regained control of the body, Nian Bing's blue eyes glowed with a hint of golden light. The protective innate domain was replaced by a layer of faint gray air current. Within the gray air current, there was a hint of golden light. Although he didn't have the protection of the heavenly eye domain, the remaining energy of the ice and fire domain couldn't harm him at all. Oscar stretched his body and shouted exaggeratedly, "Divine Dragon Cover!" He was intelligent and naturally knew that he couldn't let others know that he shared a body with Nian Bing. This exaggerated shout was to cover up the truth. Gray scales gradually grew out of his skin. The faint gray scales shone with a faint light. The scales were fine and there wasn't much change on the surface. However, Oscar's overall defense had increased by several folds. The bones all over his body made cracking sounds. His body was filled with explosive power as he leaped up. In a flash, he directly pounced on the 7th elder, who had retreated to the side to avoid the frost and fire hell. Persimmons should always be picked on the weak. Whether it was in terms of ranking or real strength, the 7th elder was the weakest among the Bloodlion Hall elders. At this time, the 7 elders had already struggled out of the ice and fire hell. They were just about to continue attacking Nian Bing when they clearly saw Nian Bing pouncing on the 7th elder at lightning speed. The 7th elder was stunned. Previously, Nian Bing had only used magic. Why did he suddenly attack him directly? Although Nian Bing's speed was fast, there were no fancy moves. The punch that was thrown with speed didn't seem to have much power. The 7th elder didn't think too much. He turned around and blasted out 3 palms at the speed of lightning to meet Oscar's attack. When the two's fighting auras collided, The seventh elder was shocked to find that the gray fighting aura released by the opponent was full of stickiness. More than half of his fighting aura was as if it was hitting rubber and didn't affect the fighting aura at all. At this time, Oscar had already closed in on him and punched towards the seventh elder's right chest. Oscar's speed was as fast as the shadow marionette in the heavenly eye domain. The seventh elder was very experienced in battle. In a situation where he couldn't dodge, he lightly struck out with his palm. It was the best choice for him to attack the opponent's vital point. Unfortunately, his judgment was wrong. Oscar didn't seem to see his attack at all. His speed increased a little. The seventh elder's palm strike was only halfway through and his fighting aura hadn't been fully released when it came into contact with Oscar's body. In that instant, the seventh elder clearly felt Oscar's body tremble slightly. He actually dissipated 30% of the energy from his attack. Oscar's body was as hard as steel, and there was a muffled bang. At the same time, Oscar's right fist had already landed on the seventh elder's body. The seventh elder's fighting aura had reached its limit. Unfortunately, the energy in Oscar's fist spun rapidly and forcibly broke through 70% of the seventh elder's fighting aura, accurately landing on the seventh elder's right chest. The seventh elder opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was directly pierced through. Fortunately, he knew how to dissipate energy, so he wasn't fatally injured by Oscar's attack. Even so, an extremely strange energy had already invaded his meridians. That energy was very strange. It didn't destroy his body. Instead, it continuously devoured the fighting aura in his body. The seventh elder couldn't control the momentum of his body at all. He crashed into the wall far away and slowly slid to the ground. At this time, he didn't even dare to move. He endured the pain from his body and used all his strength to resist Oscar's energy that had invaded his body. One of the seven elders had lost the ability to attack under Oscar's sudden sneak attack. Oscar didn't have an easy time dealing with the seventh elder's attack. Although it looked like the attack was as light as a feather and a lot of its energy had been dissipated, it still made Oscar grimace. Although the holy fighting aura couldn't break through the defense of his dragon body, it still hurt. He didn't chase after the seventh elder. Instead, he leaped into the air. He didn't use the ground to instantly change his direction. He flew diagonally to the side and dodged the joint attack of the first elder, second elder, and fourth elder. At this time, the four ultimate Dark Knights summoned by the second elder still rushed forward. They roared angrily and locked on to Oscar. Oscar, who was originally full of confidence, finally understood how strong the seven elders that Nian Bing had faced were. His confidence when he just received his body had been greatly damaged. Just as he was hesitating about which direction to go, the shadow puppet, which had been motionless since Oscar received his body, suddenly moved. The shadow puppet had disappeared because Nian Bing gave up her body, but the shadow puppet was still there. Oscar thought that it had also lost its ability to fight, but the shadow puppet's sudden movement gave him a fright. The shadow puppet's target was actually the four powerful Dark Knights. What surprised everyone even more was that when the shadow puppet rushed into the midst of the four Dark Knights, the four Dark Knights' huge bodies actually trembled. A dark purple light floated out from the shadow puppet's body and instantly enveloped the four Dark Knights' huge bodies. Not only did the Dark Knights not attack, but their bodies also trembled slightly under the dark purple light, as if they were afraid of something. At this time, the shadow puppet raised the demon-devouring blade in its hand. A sharp whistling sound came from its mouth, and the four Dark Knights' bodies disappeared in an instant. They turned into a huge amount of dark energy and crazily surged into the shadow puppet's already somewhat dim body. Under the influence of the huge amount of energy, the shadow puppet not only recovered to its peak state, but it also no longer looked like an illusion, but a real body. It was a real body that looked exactly like Nian Bing. Its entire body was covered in a long robe condensed from dark energy. Its eyes revealed a dark red light, and its powerful aura was full of oppression. Streaks of black lightning constantly flashed and entered the black gem on the demon-devouring blade's hilt. Oscar did not have the time to admire the shadow puppet's transformation, because the Great Elder and the other two had already caught up to him. Although he was fast, the combined attack of the three elders was extremely powerful, directly sealing off all of his escape routes. Oscar had no choice but to exchange a palm strike with each of the three elders. His technique was not as good as the three elders, and what he relied on was his speed and strong body. The strange gray energy helped him a lot, and in the midst of the violent rumbling, he retreated as he fought, taking dozens of palm strikes from the three elders head-on. Although his body was extremely strong, Oscar already felt uncomfortable, as if the chi and blood in his body were boiling. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, and angrily shouted, "Dragon Realm!" The golden light that was originally faintly visible in the gray light suddenly became clear, and a golden halo floated out. Oscar looked up to the sky and let out a deafening dragon roar. The scales on his body clearly became much thicker, and a golden light burst out from his eyes. The scales on his hands had already turned into a dazzling golden color. His body shook and fist shadows filled the sky to meet the attacks of the three elders. Under the strong external pressure, Oscar had no choice but to use the special attack of the first level of the Dragon God's Heart Sutra. Although his strength had been cultivated to the first level, this Dragon God's power consumed a lot of his energy. But after all, the Dragon God's Heart Sutra was a top cultivation technique that only the Dragon God could cultivate. The appearance of the Dragon Realm immediately caused Oscar's strength to reach a new level. Boom, 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 3 punches were thrown out, and unexpectedly, the 3 elders were forced to fly back, and the scales on his body were flushed red. This was the reaction when the dragon power was used to the limit. This was the first time Oscar fought with someone, so he didn't have much experience. He didn't chase after the 3 elders, and with a flash, he had already retreated to the side of the shadow puppet. At this time, the dragon realm that he used all his strength to use disappeared just like that, and the scales on his hands returned to their gray color. Oscar gasped for breath and cursed in his heart. Damn it, if I can evolve to the second stage of the dragons, or cultivate to the 3rd level of the Dragon God's Heart Sutra, why would I be afraid of these old guys? Damn it, the consumption of dragon power is too fast. The shadow puppet's figure moved horizontally, blocking in front of Oscar. He didn't look at the position of the 7 elders, and the demon-devouring blade in his hand spewed out a blade light that was more than 10 feet long. It quickly drew a few arcs in the air, and blasted away the magic of the 2nd elder, 5th elder, and 6th elder. At this time, the Great Elder and the other 2 elders had rushed up again. Oscar was in a bad state, and they were also in a bad state. Under the effect of the dragon realm, the 3 punches that Oscar and them exchanged were filled with strong vibrations, shaking the meridians of the 3 elders. But seeing that the dragon Tianxiang was about to burn out, they didn't care about regulating their own energy. At this time, the shadow puppet seemed to have changed into a different person. The dark red light in his eyes flickered, and he held the demon-devouring blade with both hands. He didn't dodge or retreat, and he wildly slashed out again and again. The surging dark energy condensed into a powerful fighting aura, and he faced the 3 elders head-on. At this time, the 2nd elder was too weak to launch any more magic attacks. Of course, the shadow puppet's ability to destroy all dark magic also made him a little scared. The forbidden spell that he used all his strength to cast actually became the opponent's energy. This kind of feeling was probably not good for anyone. Although the 5th and 6th elders wanted to use more powerful magic, Tianxiang's burning condition didn't allow them to continue chanting the forbidden spell for a long time. Therefore, they could only continuously cast Tier 5 and Tier 6 spells to harass the shadow puppet. However, after absorbing the energy of the 4 dark knights, the dark puppet had become extraordinarily powerful. It simply stood in front of Oscar and swung its sword again and again, each strike carrying a huge amount of energy. Not only did the dark puppet meet the fierce attacks of the three dark knights head-on, but it also easily dispelled the magic of the fifth and sixth elders with a single swing of its sword. Nian Bing and Oscar switched roles again. When Nian Bing once again took control of Oscar's body, she was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Because of the huge impact of the energy from before, her body was constantly in intense pain. Fortunately, Oscar's draconic power had completely transformed his body. Otherwise, after being attacked by the four swordsman elders, his body might have already collapsed. In fact, what Nian Bing didn't know was that even among the swordsmen, there were differences in strength. Although these 7 elders were too old and couldn't break through the realm of archmage and swordsman to reach a higher level, they were now at the peak of the swordsman and archmage level. This was especially true for the first elder, who could summon a flame dragon with every palm strike. Not only was he a swordsman, the flame pavilion technique that was attached to his do chi had the strength of an archmage. If it wasn't for Nian Bing using guerrilla tactics to contend with these 7 elders, coupled with his miraculous Heaven's Eye domain and shadow puppet, he might not have been a match for the first elder alone. Previously, he had overestimated himself. How could the 7 elders of the Blood Lion Hall be ordinary people? At this moment, the shadow puppet could be said to be the eye of the storm. After hiding in the eye of the storm, Nian Bing carefully observed the body in front of her that seemed to be exactly the same as her. When the shadow puppet used the demon-devouring blade, the energy would instantly increase with every slash. Nian Bing could clearly feel that the shadow puppet's energy was rapidly decreasing, but it didn't seem to have any intention of retreating. Slash after slash, it almost crazily fought against the 6 elders. Suddenly, a strange feeling arose in Nian Bing's heart. It was as if the shadow puppet in front of her was no longer a mass of energy, but a real person, a real person. After the shadow puppet once again slashed through the great elder's red fighting aura, the elders stopped attacking. The shadow puppet's body trembled slightly, but it still stood there stubbornly. At this moment, Nian Bing could clearly feel that she had regained control of the shadow puppet. Glancing at the dragon Tian Xiang in the distance, Nian Bing put the shadow puppet and the demon-devouring blade into her space ring. Although she looked a little embarrassed now, she was incomparably happy. Because in the shadow puppet's final resistance, the dragon Tian Xiang had finally burned out. Not only was Nian Bing gasping for breath, but the other elder's breathing was also unstable. The great elder looked at Nian Bing with a strange expression. "Nian Bing, how old are you this year?" Nian Bing answered honestly, "I'm about 20 years old." "Great elder, I should be considered to have passed the test, right?" she asked tentatively. Once the great elder's answer was affirmative, it would prove that she had passed the test. She had become the true leader of the Blood Lion cult and had complete control of the entire Blood Lion cult's strength. The great elder's gaze swept over the other elders. The 5th and 6th elders had already supported the 2nd elder of the earth, who had exhausted his magic power and walked over. The 7th elder had also finally dissolved the half-baked energy that Oscar had sent into his body. Of course, the price was also disastrous. More than 60% of his fighting aura had been transformed by Oscar's strange energy, and it would take at least a day or 2 to recover. The 7 elders stood in a row in front of Nian Bing. Just as Nian Bing was feeling uneasy, the 7 elders knelt down on one knee at the same time. They said respectfully, "The 7 elders of the Blood Lion cult greet the white-haired leader." Nian Bing was shocked, and then she was overjoyed. She had finally gained control of the most powerful underground force in the entire Yangon continent. She hurried forward a few steps and helped the great elder up. She said respectfully, "Great-grandfather, uncles, great-grandpas, please rise. How can I accept your salutations? From now on, no matter what, you don't have to salute me." The great elder looked deeply at Nian Bing, his eyes filled with gratification. To be honest, I really don't understand how you did it. When I was 20 years old, I was only a martial arts master, but even so, I was already the most outstanding talent in the entire Rong family. You and I are the same, walking the path of magic martial arts, but your strength is no worse than mine now. Moreover, you even have an innate territory and can summon special creatures to help you attack. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen an ability like yours. Demonic Lion was right. The young you are more suitable for the position of the cult leader than him. It seems that the future of the Blood Lion cult will become brighter. Nianbing, oh no, I should call you white-haired. The cult leader never uses his real name. From now on, as long as the 7 of us are still alive, we will unreservedly support you. Whatever you want to do, you can do it boldly. Our Blood Lion sect has been hiding underground for many years. It's time for us to move around. The second elder suddenly said, Boy, what is that shadow of yours? It seems to be the nemesis of darkness, but it belongs to darkness itself. It had been many years since the last time he suffered a loss. The second elder's overall strength was second only to the great elder, but today, he was the one who suffered the most. He used several powerful dark magic, but not only did it not work, he also almost had all of his magic power devoured by the shadow puppet. Although he had already acknowledged Nianbing as the new cult leader, he was still angry when he thought of how he couldn't fight back. The 7th elder walked up and pinched Nianbing. He also said in a bad mood, Boy, what was that fighting chi of yours? It's so strange, you almost got us killed. Nianbing smiled bitterly and said, Elders, sometimes even I don't know how strong I am. In fact, I'm only comparable to one of you. However, I was lucky enough to obtain 7 magic blade. They are all top-notch divine blades. Regardless of whether it's the innate domain or the 7 shadow puppets that you saw just now, they were all cultivated on the basis of these 7 blade. The second elder's eyes widened. What did you say? Just now you only used a puppet technique of the 7th step? Boy, are you trying to anger me to death? You should know that my ultimate Dark Knight summon is second only to the Infernal Magic Dragon summon in the Dark Magic Puppet system. You destroyed one of my forbidden spells with a little puppet technique? All my years of practicing dark magic have been in vain. Nianbing hurriedly said with a smile, Second Elder, don't be angry. Didn't I just say that my puppetry technique is based on the foundation of the magic blade? Also, you should have already noticed that I practice all types of magic. Thus, there are many changes in magic. Sometimes, even I don't understand some of the changes in magic. The great elder said with a smile, a genius all-element magician. I didn't expect that the current 4th generation of our Rong family would have such a talent like you. Good, very good. Let's go out. Now you can make all the decisions in the cult. We should also discuss your plan to change the world. Nianbing, if you have any questions, you can ask us. We will help you to take the position of cult leader. They returned to the ground. Nianbing's body had already become much more comfortable. The innate qi made his magic power recover much faster than ordinary magicians, and his body had been transformed by Oscar's dragon soul, so the recovery ability was also very strong. The pain in his body had lessened a lot. However, the second elder and the 7th elder didn't look so good. After all, they were already over 100 years old. Although they were powerful, they couldn't be compared with young people. Insu had been waiting outside the rockery all this time. When he saw that Nianbing was in a somewhat difficult situation, he walked out unharmed. He couldn't help but be so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. He didn't dare to ask too much, and hurriedly took Nianbing and the 7th elder back to the assembly hall. The 7 elders took their seats one after another. The second elder and the 7th elder both closed their eyes and rested. They were indeed a little tired. The great elder took out a golden lion from his bosom and handed it to Insu, saying seriously, according to the order of the 7th elder of the Blood Lion Hall, from today onwards, The cult leader of the Blood Lion Hall will take over. Everyone in the Blood Lion Hall will follow the orders of the substitute cult leader, White Hair. Anyone who disobeys the orders of the cult leader will be killed without mercy. Although Su already had a premonition, when he received the order from the Great Elder, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. He looked at Bing, who was in a somewhat difficult situation, and was stunned for a moment. The Great Elder frowned slightly and said, "What? Do you want me to repeat the order?" Only then did Su come to his senses. Bing had actually passed the perverted test of the 7 elders. Heavens! Had the world really changed? He was only in his 20s. How could it be? Could it be that he had cultivated for many years and regained his youth? Yes, it must be so. His hair was all white. He didn't dare to delay any longer. He took the golden lion from the Great Elder and hurried out to carry out the order. The Great Elder turned to Bing and said, "Now we can discuss the specific plan. I want to hear your plan. If I'm not wrong, you should already have a general plan." Bing nodded and said, "This plan is very important to the cult. Therefore, we must first be cautious. Secondly, this operation must be fast. Only by reaching the goal with lightning speed can we succeed. The most important thing for the operation is information. I need all the information about the politics of the entire Ice Moon Empire, especially the situation of the princes, the distribution of their strength, and all the information about themselves." The Great Elder smiled and said, "Information has always been the most important thing to the Blood Lion Hall. You can ask us directly if you want to know anything. That's because the Blood Lion Hall is the intelligence center of our sect. What you want to know, us old fellows should know. The Ice Moon Empire has always been under the 3rd Elder's charge. You can ask now." Bing thought for a moment and said, "First, I want to know how many officials in the Ice Moon Empire are under our control." The 3rd Elder's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "This is a good question. It seems that you have thought of something. Yes, not only in the Ice Moon Empire, but in all the 5 empires, there are officials under our control. There is no lack of high-ranking officials. Currently, there are more than 20 officials under our control in the Ice Moon Empire. There are 3 people with more power. 2 of them are from the military. The other one is the finance minister of the Ice Moon Empire, Sutling. Sutling is a member of the Blood Lion Hall, and he is also the vice leader of the Ice Moon Hall. We have also thought of secretly controlling the politics of the Ice Moon Empire. Therefore, he is now relying on the 5th prince, who is most likely to inherit the throne. The other 2 military officials are currently maintaining a neutral attitude. We originally planned to wait until the Ice Moon Empire was finally decided before letting them make a decision. Now, it seems that the plan needs to be changed." Bing asked, "Then who are these 2 people? How much of an effect can they be?" The 3rd Elder smiled and said, "The first person's position is not very high. However, he is deeply trusted by the current king of the Ice Moon Empire. He is the mayor of the Ice Moon City and is in charge of the 50,000 Ice Moon Guards in the outer city. He is Count Nuzzer." "What?" Bing exclaimed. The Blood Lion Hall actually controlled such an important person. Originally, he was not completely sure about the plan. However, after hearing this news, he was almost certain that the success rate of his plan was more than 90%. The 3rd Elder said, however, although he controls a lot of military forces and is in charge of all the defense of the Ice Moon City, he is only in charge of the military forces in the outer city. In the Ice Moon City, the biggest power is the royal guards that are directly under the king. Although they only have 10,000 soldiers, all of them are expert. There are also many high-ranking magicians from the Ice God Tower in the palace. There are also many experts recruited by the king. Even if the Ice Moon Guards suddenly betray us, they will not be able to cause any threat to the palace. However, this power in the palace is not something we can control. Therefore, it is absolutely impossible to directly betray us. As for the other military official that we control, he does not have any military power in the city. Whoever he submits to, he can only be a deterrent to a certain extent. Nian Bing smiled and said, I did not intend to betray us. That was a bad plan. If I am not wrong, this royal guards should only listen to the king. They will be loyal to whoever the king decides to pass the throne to. Am I right? The third elder nodded and looked at Nian Bing said with approval, Yes, that is correct. Nian Bing said, Then can you tell me the power distribution of the princes now? The third elder said, Of course. Right now, the first prince and the second prince are both born of the empress. Therefore, although these two brothers are also fighting openly and secretly, when their common enemy, the fifth prince, rose, they have already joined forces to fight against him. Many of the empress's immediate family members are high-ranking officials of the Ice Moon Empire. In addition, there is an order of seniority. Therefore, the first prince and the second prince originally had the largest power. However, it has to be said that the fifth prince has extraordinary talent. In just a few years, he has roped in many high-ranking officials of the imperial court. Recently, we have received news that he has officially received the support of the rapidly rising Magicians Guild in the Ice Moon Empire. Overall, the power that the fifth prince controls now is not inferior to that of the first prince and the second prince. As for the other princes, they were all incompetent. The third, fourth, and sixth princes only knew how to enjoy themselves and didn't have any great achievement. They only wanted to be free and unfettered kings, so they were waiting for one of their brothers to ascend the throne and send them to other places after being bestowed the title of king. As for the seventh prince you mentioned, to be honest, I do not think highly of him. He has always been very low-key. Although he is not greedy for luxury, his special hobby is very difficult to accept. Even the current king rarely pays attention to him. Therefore, among the seven princes, his power is the weakest.